a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm fine, actually. I'm not too bad. Could be worse. Yeah, I can,
6 o'clock is the time. It is a Thursday morning, the 2nd of November. Storm Kieran is upon us, and this is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. This danger to life warning as Storm Kieran batters parts of Britain, closing schools, grounding flights and plunging communities underwater.
In parts of England, commuters have been advised to work from home, and there could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain head north. Aidan McGivern has the latest for you.
Storm Kieran is currently bearing down across southern parts of the UK. I'll have the full details on this storm in the forecast coming up.
I'm just protecting the computer at the moment. That's what I'm trying to do.
The first tranche of British nationals have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt, but the war rages on. The United Nations now says the bombing of an established refugee camp could be a war crime.
The AI summit continues today at Bletchley Park. World leaders, including the United States Vice President Kamala Harris and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, are meeting business and tech leaders like Elon Musk to discuss the risks and benefits of artificial intelligence.
Also coming up, what is the expected interest rate decision later today? When will rates start to come down? And will ultra-low rates ever return?
Returning with lots of bad news today, Paul Coit. with the Sport Carabao Cup last night.
I don't use the word woe lightly when it comes to sport.
Yeah.
There's more woe for Manchester United and Eric Ten Hag and Eamonn Holmes as well. Arsenal lose to West Ham, and also got a very bizarre sporting concussion for you.
Yeah, you see, I didn't think that Ten Hag's job would ever be in doubt, but after that result last night...
I think it is, my friend. I think it is. Can't see him at the end of the season, maybe even before Christmas. We'll see.
Okay.
We always want to hear from you. I have to say today, a particular appeal. If you've got any pictures of trees down, tiles flying off your roof, trampolines, bins, whatever it might be, it is wild and wet out there, particularly, I think, in the Channel Islands where there's this red weather warning. So please send us your pictures, send us your stories, even a little clip of what's happening where you are. gbviews@gbnews.com is the way to do it, or you can X us at GBNews.
OK, well, Storm Kieran is our top story today. As I got up this morning, very wet. Apparently it was windy, very bad in the London area around 3 a.m. This morning. But the storm has wreaked havoc, strong winds up to 80 miles an hour around coastal areas. So it may have gone through, it may be yet to come. We'll be giving you the latest throughout the programme this morning.
Well, a major incident has been declared in Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight with warnings that Storm Kieran could pose a risk to life.
The Met Office has issued what is called an amber warning for wind. There are multiple yellow warnings throughout the day. Schools and airports across the Channel Islands will shut down as they brace for some of the worst weather conditions in 36 years.
But the wild weather certainly isn't isolated to the south. Northern Ireland has already faced heavy flooding, with some rivers bursting their banks as the storm approached.
RAC warning drivers in the south and west of England to avoid coastal and rural roads. Greater chance of falling trees on those.
Well, joining us now is the senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, Jim Dale, and a regular on our programme. Good to see you, Jim. Look, it's wet and wild out there, particularly in the south. Looks like it is where you are as well. Is it fair to say the Channel Islands possibly going to be the worst affected area?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think where I'm at the moment, central southern England, I'm in High Wycombe area, it's not too bad. I can actually hold an umbrella up. So, you know, it's not exactly blowing a gale here at the moment. There's a bit of rain around, but to be honest, at the moment, for many parts of the country, it ain't so bad. All the major winds at this moment are still on the south coast. We see about an 85 mile an hour gust down in the southwest, and that's about the top of it. You've got to go to the Channel Islands for a bit more than that, but generally speaking, it's confined to those where we expected it to be, to those southern counties. Now, the actual centre's off Dorset at the moment. It will track northeastwards across the London area and into East Anglia later. That doesn't necessarily mean the winds will follow it, but it's the southern flank of those winds, so maybe into Essex later. But as well as that, the rain is going to be another problem, especially for the already very wet areas of the country with the rivers, etc. So that's one to watch. But at the moment, I think most people going to work, etc., where they're going, it's not too bad. So we'll wait and see.
What are we waiting for, Jim, though? That's the question. Has the worst passed, or is it yet to come?
No, I think certainly you mentioned last night and the approach of the storm and the winds getting up, you know, that scenario. I think that one's passed. The next one is the low itself moving across the southeast of England. I think, you know what, this is a watch and wait exercise. At the moment, I would say it's probably, arguably, not going to be as bad as some of the forecasts that were put out. So hopefully you can cross your fingers and that will come off. But we still got to watch and wait. It's a storm in action, and we got to see that as it moves across and see what it actually brings later today.
And just to explain a little bit, I love a bit of a meteorology lesson. We hear everybody using these terms, a low pressure sort of barreling in off the Atlantic. Why is this happening? And, you know, is it pretty typical for this time, 2nd of November?
Well, yeah, this time of year, this is the season of low pressure. It's a normality that we see low pressure systems going off the Atlantic. The concern with this one was a thing called cyclogenesis, that it would go far more intense, pick up energy off what's been a very warm, record-breaking Atlantic, much as Babette did to a certain degree, picking up all that moisture as it came. So that's the kind of scenario that meteorologists were looking at on the approach of this particular storm. It's certainly got some of that intensity in it, which is delivered already in the Channel Islands and on the south coast. Excuse me. But I think there may be yet more to come. So that's the story, if you like. And I think in the end, this might be more and more of a rain story than it will necessarily a strong wind story. But as I say, the story is not over yet. So let's wait and see what these next few hours are going to bring.
Jim, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
You're
Leave
welcome.
it there. Thank you.
Well, from here in the UK, our focus now to the Middle East. We say goodbye to Jim, who is just putting his brolly down for us. We're trying to cut away from you, Jim, but we just can't. You just light up our screen.
Apparently, you're stuck on our feed. So what we do in these circumstances is that because we can see nothing but your big...
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. We concentrate now on the situation in Gaza. Chaotic 24 hours at the Rafah crossing. Rows of ambulances took the most seriously injured out of Gaza and into the safety of Egypt.
Yes, and the first British nationals have now been bussed out of the Strip. Around 44 different nationalities, including many Britons, have been trapped inside Gaza since the 7th of October atrocities.
The UN saying Israeli strikes on a refugee camp which killed a Hamas commander, as well as dozens of other people, could amount to a war crime. The International Criminal Court says it's investigating possible breaches of international law by Hamas and the Israeli military.
Well, in a speech in Minnesota, President Biden said he welcomes the safe passage of Americans from Gaza.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. Working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible.
Now, just on this subject, Mark White, our reporter who is in Israel for us, he will be reporting from an Israeli Defence Force camp and looking at the preparations that are ongoing there, and we'll be doing that very, very shortly.
We're going to move on to artificial intelligence now. Of course, this landmark summit is going on, and it's a question really of whether it's really just the stuff of science fiction or if it really has the ability of a machine to display human-like capabilities such as reasoning, learning, planning and creativity.
Elon Musk says it's going to kill all of us. There you are. That's IA. Rishi Sunak, though, he wouldn't use such words. He's hosting this summit. And this is, if I hear Bletchley Park and code breaking once more, but anyway, we get the idea. I'd like to know where Britain was always in the development of AI through the years. I'd like to know how and why and where and what support they did give the code breakers back in those days. Tech bosses and some world leaders will attend. Joe Biden, he's not there. Will that make much difference? You know, Joe Biden could be being run by AI at the moment.
That would be an improvement, maybe.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? But anyway, other major European people are not expected either. I mean, we keep doing all that. There's lots of people there. Anyway, our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, is one of them. Tom.
Summit, Global AI Safety Summit, hosted here in Bletchley Park in the United Kingdom. And the organisers say that of this first day, there were three main takeaways. Firstly, the extraordinary moment when we saw senior representatives from both the United States of America and the People's Republic of China standing together on a stage, singing from the same hymn sheet on AI safety regulation. That was an extraordinary moment that kicked off the day, and the spirit of cooperation we saw from the 28 major countries represented at this summit. Indeed, kicking off the first day was what was known as the Bletchley Declaration. These 28 countries, including, very, very crucially, the US, China, and that group of countries known as the EU, all signing up to the UK statement that crucially defines what's known as frontier AI, the problem which people are trying to control here at this inaugural summit. First, in order to get control of the problem or the perceived problem, it has to be defined. And that was one of the crucial takeaways from today. But thirdly, and perhaps most crucially, is that this is the inaugural AI Safety Summit. It's not the last. The next thing that was agreed was that the next two summits will take place in 6 months and 12 months' time. First in South Korea and next in France. Keeping up with the rapidly changing pace of this technology, the amount of compute that these extraordinary companies and their frontier level AI systems have is improving by 7 times year on year. That's not doubling, that's not doubling, that's 7 times improvement year on year. And so these summits are with increasing frequency now after this and keep up with the challenges. But what's coming today? That is a big question, perhaps the most seismic political element of the whole jamboree. We'll see the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and also we'll see the Prime Minister in a much more forward-facing role here in Bletchley. And we might well hear some more political agreements, perhaps even at the UN level. All of that is to come at another very busy 24 hours ahead for us here in Bletchley Park.
With that for us, and we will be speaking to
Tom
Michelle.
Harwood, or was it a sort of projection?
AI version. Well, yeah, very energetic for this time of day, may I say. It could be. We've got Michelle Donlan. She's the government's Science, Innovation and Technology Secretary of State. She's coming on in around half an hour, so we'll be talking to her about what's being called the Bletchley Accord. And this is the big ambition of this landmark summit, that they can come out with a big agreement between nations, tech leaders and the like.
Tell us about the King.
Oh, yes, the King and AI is the headline for the Metro this morning. I thought it was a very natty little headline from them. He was beamed in from Kenya, no less, yesterday, really urging nations to work together so that AI is a force for good. So there's been lots of publicity about the people that aren't there. But actually, you know, Elon Musk, a big wig, and of course now the King getting involved.
So Elon Musk says, and listen up, folks, on this, he's the richest man in the world, right? He says he believes AI is one of the biggest threats to humanity and more dangerous than a nuclear bomb. OK, that's what he thinks. So he's developed SpaceX, Tesla, X.
He was saying yesterday he thinks it's an 80% force for good, but has a 20% potential for serious harm. And he said it's just about trying to manage that
harm, where it will go wrong. You've only got to watch a James Bond film or something to see where it will go wrong. because you'll get humans, flawed
Evil
human
people.
beings, evil people, and there is evilness in the world.
Unfortunately.
Who will try and take advantage of it, and then the technology will turn on them, and then they'll end up dead like all Bond villains do. So there we go. The time, 16 minutes past 6 o'clock. Whatever you're doing, listening or watching, this is Breakfast on GB News. I'm Eamonn Holmes, and that is Isabel Webster.
And here's a reminder of our top stories. A danger to life this morning. Warnings as Storm Kieran batters parts of Britain, closing schools, grounding flights and plunging communities underwater.
Commuters in parts of England have been advised to work from home, and there could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain are heading right up the country northwards.
The first wave of British nationals have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt, but the war is raging on. The United Nations now says the bombing of an established refugee camp could be a war crime.
Some of the biggest names in technology, as you've just heard, are meeting at Bletchley Park at this massive AI, Artificial Intelligence Conference, hosted by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Also coming up, what is the expected interest rate decision later? When will rates start to come down? And will we ever see the return of ultra-low interest rates?
We just want to say about this storm, Kieran, if it's affected you, get your phone out. Show us what it's done, if it's wrecked your garden shed or worse than that. I think it seems to be flooding is going to be the biggest consequence of this. So let us see what is happening. Maybe you're already flooded out and this comes on top of everything.
Do you know, I was seeing footage yesterday on Instagram of people in the Channel Islands doing that thing we all did during the pandemic, raiding the supermarket shelves. The supermarket was completely empty because the government in Jersey had been telling people basically batten down the hatches, the schools, the hospitals, everything closed today, and everyone had done a run on the supermarket. So the shelves were completely empty. If that's you, send us your pics, let us know what your situation has been. Yeah.
So what would you take? I mean, if I went to the supermarket and had to stock up on something, suppose you want to get something that's nutritious, something that's good for all the family, something like custard creams.
I was thinking tuna. Tuna's always a good one because, you know, it's healthy and it stays in tins, so you could have that.
It smells fishy.
Tuna and pasta. It's delicious, pasta tuna. What would you do if you were
thing. Do you know what I had yesterday?
Inside?
I had a pasta and crab.
Oh. Like a crab linguine type thing.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. No, I actually find crab a bit strong.
Bit crabby.
It depends on the crab, but yeah.
Bit of shell in it.
If it's lovely and fresh, then it's fine. But anything less than fresh,
really
it gets a bit stinky.
And then I followed that up with they did mushy peas with it, with batter. Do you know the fish batter you get?
Yeah.
Right. So they just took the batter off the fish and they mixed it in with the mushy peas. So you had mushy peas and fish batter.
Hang on, tempura, pea tempura.
What
effectively, that's like deep-fried peas as opposed to deep-fried fish.
Well, it was mushy peas.
Interesting. Was this high-end or was this...
high-end.
Yeah, very fancy.
It's high-end. and then I had this ginger pudding, which I don't normally have dessert. But
of course not.
But a ginger pudding with ginger jam
on it,
and then cream and custard.
Speaking of jam, do you know what I did yesterday?
What?
I made quince jelly.
No, I've never known. There's the Island the Pussycat went to sea.
In a pea green boat.
Yes, they took some money and plenty of honey wrapped up in a £5 note. But there was something about quince.
There was.
And when I was in primary school, I used to think, what is quince?
Well, I've got 2 quince trees now, so I picked all my quinces, which is so rock hard. And actually, when you peel them, you can chop a finger off. It's really difficult. And we made quince jelly, oodles of it. So if you want any, I'll give you one. I'll bring you one tomorrow.
How do you make quince jelly?
Hours and hours and hours of boiling and sieving.
You want to be like the new Mary Berry or something, don't you?
Well, to be honest, it was my husband's idea.
Was it?
Yeah. He likes a relish.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
A relish is a good idea.
There we go.
Hope you're relishing us today. Businesses and families with loans. And we only talk about these things because the news is so bloomin' depressing.
Yeah.
Okay?
There's
no good news. There's no good news
well,
about
it. There could be. Who knows what's going to happen today?
So this is about loans today and interest rates, right?
Yeah, and there could be some relief from the Bank of England. They're going to be announcing interest rate decisions at midday today. And our economics editor, Liam Halligan, has been doing a bit of forecasting.
Well, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. It's a big day because at 12 noon, weather allowing, I'll be outside the Bank of England reporting on the latest decision on interest rates by the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. If we have a look at this graph, we can see that interest rates were very, very low. 2017, 2018, they went ultra low during COVID lockdown, just 0.25%. But since then, we've seen 14 successive interest rate rises, all the way up to 5.25% where they currently are. Now, those higher interest rates, they've really squeezed mortgage holders. They've really squeezed a lot of businesses. We're seeing the highest number of insolvencies at the moment that we've had here in the UK since that 2008 financial crisis. But there is a sense, after the Bank of England held interest rates last month, that they're going to hold interest rates again. It may be that interest rates have now peaked. And if that is the case, that will certainly come as a relief to a lot of mortgage holders and a lot of businesses that are trying to service their debts. So fingers and toes crossed, all eyes on the Bank of England at 12 noon, that interest rates will stay on hold.
Well, Liam Hannigan is the man, and he will be right across that. As soon as we hear what the new rate will be, we will bring that to you.
Speaking of the men, it's time to go through all the latest sports news with the other man of the day, GB News sports presenter, Paul Coit.
Good morning.
And let's talk about...
What's good about it?
Well, look, how
Man
should I handle
United.
him with this, do you think?
Just talk to me.
Shall I?
Well, the Carabao Cup, the holders are out.
The holders are out, I'm afraid so. Yeah, and 3-0, no fight. There was nothing there. There was no skill. They were not together. It was bad from the manager. It was a shambles. I'm sorry to tell you.
Please, can you go easy, because it affects my whole morning if you upset the man next to me.
I have to be honest with you.
Change the result, and he's right. I mean, it was painful to watch. I know so many people who left the game at 2-0. They didn't even wait for the third goal.
No, just walking out. It's a real worry. And I've got to tell you, like I said earlier, I don't think Erik ten Hag is going to last through this. I think eventually, I know you've got to stick with the manager, and it started bad, then it went well, and now it's gone bad again. It's about dealing with players.
Yeah, and I think this is player power again.
Yep.
And I know Man U have got big injury problems at the minute. They've all sorts of social problems and things going on, and economic problems and whatever. But it looks to me as if the tough approach, there's a dressing room contingent which is saying, we're not.
Things are different.
Yeah.
Things are different. Erik ten Hag, well, let's go back to Alex Ferguson, the way Alex Ferguson was.
I wish we could.
Well,
you can't do it anymore.
Era.
You're right, Izzy. It is a different era, and I don't even think Sir Alex would get the reaction, because now you've got these millionaires that are sitting there that will go, well, we'll go somewhere else. If we don't like you, you're going to go before we do, and that's what they say to the manager.
Well, you watch
that's
the
what they feel.
Beckham documentary, and look, I don't want to feel sorry for Beckham, but I sort of felt sorry for Beckham. You know, he was almost groomed and you know, wasn't allowed to control his own life. I mean, Fergie didn't like him getting married and having a career outside of football. Do you really want to go back to that?
But the thing is, Izzy, I think they...
If it wins us trophies.
You know what, if it wins, they'll take it. But the thing is that you can't... It's just so different these days. You want to try and control the place because that should be the right way of doing it and looking up to the manager, but they have all the power. So I don't think Erik ten Hag it's just going to work.
The power, and this was a revenge, a grudge match last night, beaten finalists last year, or last season, Newcastle. So a tremendous win for them, especially at Old Trafford.
Absolutely.
West Ham, big win against Arsenal.
Huge win against Arsenal. When Declan Rice gets back, we were wondering how his reaction was going to be. There were a few cheers, there were a few boos. But Arsenal, again, what they've done in the Carabao Cup, and this is Mikel Arteta, made 6 changes. It's our old thing. Why do you do this? And I think with Arsenal fans thinking, let's just play the best team and get to Wembley, but there were changes.
Fans want a trophy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the League Cup is the first trophy of the season. And it's just a pity that it's all about league form, isn't it, though? That's what
everybody always wants. So Liverpool beat Bournemouth and Everton beat Burnley, Ipswich lost to Fulham and Chelsea beat Blackburn. I've got a little cricket for you. Now, this is a bizarre thing. England are playing Australia at the weekend. There's good news for England, and this is the fact that Glenn Maxwell, who plays for Australia, hit the fastest century ever seen. He got 140 balls last week, but he's out due to concussion through a bizarre golfing injury. I'm going to give you the choice.
So he picked up the golfing injury first?
The golfing this is how he's got concussion by playing golf. I'm going to give you a choice of 3 and you tell me how you think he did it. Was it A, he got hit on the head by a flying golf ball?
Possibly.
Probably.
Was it he fell out the back of a golf cart? Or was it after holing the winning putt, He toppled over the hole and then face-planted onto the green. I feel like Frank Muir in Call My Bluff is it A, B or C?
Well, A is the most obvious, which
But
means
well,
it's
no,
not
because why would a ball hit him on the head? Because he's next to...
someone else tees off.
What, do they all tee off at the same time?
They tee off from the same tee, or somebody from an opponent will get tee over there.
Yes.
Slices it. If you somebody like Paul and I...
OK, you go A.
Yeah,
I'm going to go B, because I could see that being a problem.
Fell out the back of a golf cart.
Yeah, I think that's good fun.
I think they fell down the hole.
You think face plant?
Slipped on the
OK,
hole.
then I'll go A. You go C, I'll go A.
Yeah.
The answer is B.
Oh, come
Too late, you changed.
No.
You changed at the last minute. He fell out the back of a golf cart as they're driving along, falls out the back, hits his head, can't play against England at the weekend.
Easily done.
It's easily done. You've got to strap yourself in on those things.
Where there's a blame, there's a claim.
Of course there is.
But who was driving the golf buggy? They're going to be in a lot
I think he was driving, playing, doing the whole lot and fell out the back as well.
Oh, right,
anyway,
OK.
So be careful.
I
There's a message
teed
for everyone,
off.
be careful.
I teed off in the Frank Carson Golf Classic in Northern Ireland.
Of course you did.
And
did you fall out of the golf buggy?
That's one of the majors, by the way, the Frank Carson.
And around my tee box, one of the majors, around my tee box, people were unfortunately queued up to see me, tee off.
On the tee,
and the
Eamonn
pressure,
Holmes.
the pressure for people looking at
awful, isn't it?
For slicing.
It's awful.
Is immense. And I sliced and hit this girl.
Oh, no!
Oh, no, you didn't.
But she didn't stop there because they had to then get an ambulance onto the course. No. So the whole tournament was held up because of my bad strike.
Oh, dear.
And the girl was brought to hospital. But I went to see her in hospital and they took pictures of me in hospital.
With the golf ball.
Yes, but apparently it was a great cure. It was a great pick-me-up.
What was you going?
And me going to hospital.
I'm sure it
Sent
was.
her into cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
If that was you, get in touch. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you all these years later. Well, one of your absolute.
Thank goodness you didn't drive her in the buggy then instead of the ambulance. That could have been even worse.
But there's an awful thing in a celebrity tournament.
Oh, terrible! It's the worst.
People watch.
First, I can't even go to a first even when I'm playing with friends, let alone when there's people watching.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
I think it's a 7-iron, really.
I think so.
Don't do the drive.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's you. Go with showbiz. Think big.
A performer like
get
you,
the wood.
Eamonn.
I'm going to hit it straight down the
You
middle.
perform best with an audience. What are you talking
That's
about?
it.
That's what it's all
That's
about.
you all over, mister. I'm going for the big one. I'm going for broke.
Okay,
that's why we love it.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Coity.
The time is 1 minute now to 6:30. This is Breakfast in GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. A reminder of our top stories.
Danger to life warnings this morning. Storm Kieran is beginning to batter parts of Britain, closing schools, grounding flights and plunging communities underwater.
Commuters in parts of England have been advised to work from home, and there could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain head north.
The first tranche of British nationals have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt, but the war is raging on. The United Nations now says the bombing of an established refugee camp could be a war crime.
The AI summit continues today at Bletchley Park. World leaders, including US Vice President Kamala Harris and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, are meeting business and tech leaders like Elon Musk to discuss the risks and benefits of artificial intelligence. The Secretary of State for Science, Michelle Donnellan, will join us from there very, very shortly, in about 15 minutes' time.
And we're going to take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. The GMB community and Unite unions have condemned the upcoming closing of a Tata steel plant in Port Talbot. That's one of the UK's biggest steelworks.
Over the last 7 months, the Metropolitan Police has recorded 987 crimes relating to ULEZ cameras. That includes 220 reports of cameras being stolen and 767 being damaged. Only 5 people have been arrested over criminal damage relating to those cameras since the London Mayor announced the expansion of the clean air zone.
The City of Edinburgh Council is set to declare a housing emergency with the homelessness figure reaching a new high. There's also a severe shortage of socially rented homes and private rental costs.
And is anybody going to do anything about the lack of housing in this country. Absolutely disgusting. Surely it is a moral responsibility. Surely it is a human right. And Prince William, of course, when he talks about eradicating
homelessness.
And how long? 10 years, was it?
Yeah, I can't remember the time frame.
But I mean, I thought when he said it, I thought this is impossible. This is not going to happen. And I still believe that. I still think the trouble is that nobody cares, nobody in authority cares. Big business don't care, the big builders certainly don't care about this, and it is an absolute disgrace in this country that people will sleep on the streets.
Couldn't agree more. Can I just say, this storm, Kieran, lots of people getting in touch this morning. I just want to read this out from Jess Morga. She joins us from Guernsey via email. She says, good morning to the GB News breakfast team. Wow, it is awful in Guernsey right now. My daughter came in our bed last night. She was so frightened by the ferocious noise. I've never heard anything like it. Already 20 roads across our small island completely blocked by trees. Lights are flickering. We're expecting impending power cuts. Our emergency services are doing a fantastic job in keeping the island informed as the storm rages. It still looks like we have another couple of hours in the eye of it. We're actually going to try and get in touch with you, Jess, so stay close to your phone. You've given us your number and we'll give you a little call maybe and have a little look how it's going where you are.
Well, actually, if you're in the eye of the storm, it's probably good, because that's the calm bit.
It's just apparently around the southern flank
of the periphery of it, which is the problem. But pretty scary, and it must be that whole sense of islanditis. You're on that small island, and you know, you're disconnected from the mainland and whatever. And look at those pictures coming in there. It seems to be that flooding, aided by winds, going to be the biggest problem with all of this. Keep the pictures coming in. Thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate you emailing them to us, and we will make good use of those this morning.
6:32, stay with us. Still to come, campaigners are ramping up their calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, with Save the Children taking their message straight to Westminster.
And Michelle Donnellan, the Science Minister, she's going to join us from the AI conference.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new
Yes,
teeth.
I know.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As I said to my colleague last night,
oh no,
If there was a storm, who would I like in my tent?
You said me.
I said you.
That was a nice
You'd
thing
be
to say.
a good person.
You said some other things, which was gives with one hand and takes with the other, but we'll focus on the good today.
But anyway...
Is that because I'm a capable person?
Yes, that's what I'm trying... What, do you think it's romantic or something? Do you think I sort of want to
I don't know why you want
tie
me to
down the
do
tent
the
and keep
domestic
you inside?
washing up or something. I
No,
don't know.
it's a reference when you say they're a good person to have in your tent.
Yeah.
It means that their skill set is very good.
I'm actually really rubbish at camping. Just the specifics of a tent, really, especially in a storm. The tent would blow away.
Have you ever saw
anyway?
You started something, tried to do it anyway. Front pages you're waking up to today. Let's have a look at those this morning. Financial Times. This is the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza, opening for the first time in 3 weeks. Foreign nationals allowed to cross.
Telegraph reporting on the British citizens who escaped from Gaza last night through that crossing. They're saying many more nationals, though, have been left stranded inside Gaza.
Daily Express. The Foreign Secretary says he will not rest until the government has done what it can to help Britons in Gaza.
The Metro have a good headline this morning. They say the King and AI, and he's been beamed into this landmark summit, urging the world to unite to combat the risks of artificial intelligence.
Also front page of the Daily Mail, along with warnings from Elon Musk that he believes AI is one of the biggest threats to humanity. To quote him, he says it will kill all of us if we don't handle it properly. Quaking in their boots this morning, writer and broadcaster Candice Holdsworth and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Scarlett, very good to see you both. First of all, can we talk about storms? Ever been in a storm?
Oh, yes, yes. When I was living in Johannesburg for 11 years, you get these incredible summer storms. I mean, they are the most intense things.
Thunder, lightning?
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, thick rain, hailstones. I mean, people actually say, oh, my goodness, a storm's building up, and they watch it. I mean, it's like the most dramatic thing you've ever experienced.
You like it?
When I'm indoors and I'm safe, not if I'm driving, like we've had to pull over before because the rain's so thick and the hailstones, it's dangerous. I mean, everyone feels differently. My mother-in-law hates them. She absolutely hates them. She's frightened of them. I guess it just depends, you know.
I don't like thunder and lightning. You do, don't you?
I love thunder and lightning, yeah. But again, only if I feel safe.
Yes,
not when I'm outside,
but
for
then,
example.
you know, it ties into that Halloween thing again. I mean, I do believe there are witchetty sides to you. You know, then I think, you know, the thunder and lightning, hubble, bubble, toil and trouble. No?
I told my builder, you said you can take your costume off now yesterday when I got home. He was very offended on my behalf. He said you should have told him, you should get off. Do you like storms, Scarlett?
I do. Well, I was in the 1987 hurricane.
Yes.
And it was awful because I'd been, in the middle of that night, I'd been burgled, right? So I innocently rang up the phone 999 and they said, no, we've got better things to do. And it was, it was actually, the whole thing was terrifying. And I was on my own with my son. It was... yeah, anyway, little, tiny...
Were you badly burgled, sort of windows broken in?
No. It was somebody just walked in. They'd taken my car keys, they'd taken all sorts of weird things.
Oh, no.
So I remembered it a lot, and it was horrible, actually. And then you woke up the next morning and there were just trees
and
down.
Of course, it affected some people and not others. I was in Manchester at the time. It didn't go as far as Manchester, didn't get there. So we were the only part of the BBC which was available to broadcast. So the programme that I was doing, we then ended up being a sort of light entertainment programme, which then became the news voice of the BBC until Nicholas Witchell got himself into a broom cupboard, quite literally. I think it literally was the broom cupboard that the children's presenters used to broadcast the latest news situation.
Shall we focus on a viral video that's doing the round? Save the Children have projected a ceasefire now onto the Houses of Parliament, calling this a war that is killing children. Hopefully we can see that image.
So are they allowed to do that? Do they go and ask permission for that, or do they just do it anyway?
I don't know. Scarlett, you probably know more about it.
No, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, I can't. Both things are weird. So you think they must have permission, and then you think, but who would give them permission?
Yeah. Well, do you remember the lettuce as well? They projected the lettuce during the whole Liz Truss phenomenon.
Then obviously you don't have to have permission because...
Yeah, 'cause that's, pretty bad.
I'm sure Liz Truss's government would not have allowed the lettuce.
No. Seems to be a thing now. It can go viral, right? I mean,
it is a thing, no matter what it is, whether it's Buckingham Palace or whether it's there or whatever. The idea is to paint a building with different light, isn't it, with a different message and all that sort of thing.
And yet there will be no ceasefire as it stands, and certainly the British government and indeed Sir Keir Starmer trying to explain yesterday why he thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't completely agree with him. I mean, I do think that what's going on is terrible, and I completely understand. I mean, there is a child being killed every 15 minutes. I mean, it is an absolutely appalling mess in Gaza. But I do think. I mean, I read the Keir's speech. I didn't see him make it. I did think it was very good, and at long last, he absolutely explained his position so that people can't try and push him into any corners.
So he was trying to say that a ceasefire rarely leaves the position any different from where it left off, and all it would do is allow Hamas to rearm and then perhaps lead to a further attack onto Israel. Was that his sort of...
Yeah, I mean, that whereas a humanitarian pause, and one has to say how long is a humanitarian pause, because... So before the war, or whatever we're calling it, there were 500 aid trucks coming into Gaza a day. I mean, at the moment, even now, with the opening of the Rafah crossing, there's less than 100. And actually, to get serious humanitarian aid in so that there's enough food, water and fuel... and he did say there should be fuel, that actually we do need... a pause has to be... I mean, it has to be like a ceasefire. I mean, it's terrible.
Candice, this AI thing, we're going to be talking to the Science Minister next on the programme. Where do you stand and what do you think of it? How do you think this is... You see, I think despite all the scare tactics, this is about gaining ground and getting Britain a big slice of the action from a business point of view on all of this. So people can say, quel horreur, we need regulation, but they're really saying, yeah, give us this, give us that, give us the jobs all associated with it.
Yes, yeah.
And there won't be any jobs in 10 years' time.
Whoa, this is the thing. Well, it's interesting with Rishi Sunak. So, I mean, with everything going on in the world, people are saying, why is he focusing on AI? I mean, he's organised this big conference, he's made many speeches on it, and I just wonder if this is what he's going to focus on. Say they don't win the election, this is something that he can really specialise in. And I think...
After the election.
Yes. And I think that's because he does see that Britain is actually a leader in AI. We've got some really brilliant AI companies. We've also got a lot of the education infrastructure to be able to train people up to head up the AI companies of the future. But I think also what people are talking about now, it's not necessarily experimental technology, it's how we're going to regulate it. And we're not going to learn as we go. It seems like people want to sort of, from the beginning, plan out and plot out what the pitfalls could be. Although there's a lot we don't know, and we don't always know what we don't know.
There's lots which I think you look at and you say, I can see the sense of that. That would be good. That's better than a human being doing that. But then this is ultimately going to lead to making human beings redundant.
This is the thing, and this is what I think the more pessimistic people within AI are saying, that across the board, the AI will just become more competent than us in everything. And what will that mean for the future of employment? You have more sort of utopian people who say, well, we'll have time to just focus on our own things and we won't have to work anymore.
But you won't have any money.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, exactly. That's why you get the people who come in and talk about universal basic income, but that, I think, would change our societies beyond all recognition. I mean, I just think as human beings, we need a purpose. You know, we need something to get up for in the morning. I think without that, we'd become something different.
We are all defined by what we do. So you're, you know, Candice, the broadcaster, the writer, whatever it is. I'm Eamonn, international superstar.
You wish.
It's the burden that I've been
It's
given.
terrible, Eamonn, isn't it?
I'm the long-suffering telly-wife.
Absolutely.
It is.
But actually, the AI thing, it's quite interesting. So an employment, I mean, you know, a top employment lawyer who's a friend of mine, looked up ChatGPT and actually found that for most things, it could do his job. It could do his job. And this was you know, a year or so ago, and that is just going to go on more and more. That it's going to be more competent. Yeah, sometimes it's nonsense. I mean, there's a BBC correspondent who's got a memoir out, and somebody somebody used AI to write a biography, and he said he got it completely wrong. So this is a child of a single mother, and it was supposed to be about a family. But I think AI. I mean, most of us just don't understand it, but it's going to... I mean, obviously, Eamonn, you are completely irreplaceable, but I do think a lot of professionals are going to be replaced.
And I never thought writers would be. I always thought, no, they can't create meaning like we can. But then when you see how brilliantly it actually can write, it made me think, whoa.
We looked at broadcasters. We saw that demonstration about... We thought, well, they can't do what we do here, but they can.
They can't do what you do. Total hand grenade. Honestly.
Or a disruptor, as Scarlett Maguire.
I know, but actually, the thing is that your editor might think, God, you know, if we didn't have, if we had just an AI person, they do what I say instead of Eamonn deciding what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But how boring would that be?
But I'll tell you that here's the trouble with British television: people reading autocue, right? So you just get people, and you can get anybody. You can read it, she can read it, and she can read it, I can read it, whatever. And the secret about being successful on TV is not to read the autocue.
Right.
That's my view. That's my genuine view about all of that. Right, we've got Michelle Donnellan here because just on this whole subject that we're just getting warmed up on, the Minister of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Michelle Donnellan, joins us now from the AI Summit. Michelle, good morning to you. No. So now, this is where you need AI, because my director's now saying to me, no, she's not
Minister,
here.
no, she's not ready. Shall we take a break?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll carry on. We'll carry on talking to our lovely panel and just wait a couple of minutes for that to be ready. Should we talk about the pandemic? We've obviously got an ongoing inquiry. We've had Dominic Cummings and all the rest of it about 100 metres down the road from us here. But this is a medical take on it all.
Well, I thought it particularly applied to Eamonn, actually, because it's about the over 50s losing their brains.
Gone a long time ago.
Long before the pandemic.
It says whether you had COVID or not, that your brain function is affected, and they are amazing. This is a study done by the University of Exeter and King's called the PROTECT study, and they are very, very worried about the effect. And they don't know the cause. I mean, obviously, they think it's lockdown, but they say that the effect went on after lockdown. More people are getting dementia, more people are having problems. So, Eamonn, we need to think hard about you.
I do remember during the pandemic when I had COVID, and I got it really early on, and I got it quite badly. I blacked out on the bathroom floor and things like that, and couldn't stand up straight. My back was really weird. But I was working throughout, and when it was the only thing I can compare it to, and I know you've both had babies, but the mental fog was the same as baby brain that I experienced at the time, where I would be speaking and I would completely forget what I was trying to say, and I've never known anything like it, and I think it's pretty much gone now. But for a long time after, I was really nervous to do stuff.
Well, that is gone, but the Science Minister is here. We're not just teasing me, guys. She is here, is she? Oh, there she is. That's Michelle Donnellan. Or is it?
I am.
Is it? Could it be an AI projection, Michelle?
Oh, very good, Eamonn. Very good. Good morning. Glad to be speaking to you today.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, you're there today. First of all, give me the excitement of all of this before we start throwing all the negatives at you. What's there to look forward to? What's the benefit of this summit?
Yeah, well, you're quite right. The whole reason why we're doing this is the transformational benefits that AI can present. But with those humongous benefits come risks. And whilst there is a debate over when those risks could actually materialise and how much they could materialise, we think it's the responsible thing as a government to try and grip them, but not just domestically, internationally. So what we're doing here is actually a landmark summit. For the first time ever, we have convened countries across the globe, companies that are working in this space, producing that cutting-edge AI, and also academics, scientists, experts from all over the world to have a conversation and work out, OK, what are the risks? How can we work together in a long-term process so that we can really tackle this and get the benefits for humanity, not just here in the UK, but across the globe?
So, I mean, it seems to me, I mean, we've heard Elon Musk is in the papers this morning saying AI is more dangerous than the nuclear bomb. We've heard from the King being beamed in from Kenya that, you know, we really need to work together. There's lots of warnings. I want to know what the Bletchley Accord, what the solutions are going to be. What are your suggestions? How are you going to make sure that humanity is protected in all of this?
Yeah, so we've been investing more than any other country in the world when it comes to AI safety. And we convened an expert task force with some of the best minds on AI from across the globe and really have been focusing on the risks in relation to the research of it, because there is big debates on this. But we thought that actually what we need to do is work collaboratively with the rest of the world. I compare it to climate change. If we just do our own work in a silo, it won't have the same impact.
Well, we're not
So
doing a great job, are we, globally? Sorry to interrupt, just we have limited time. I just don't really feel very heartened by the solutions. You know, if we compare it to how we tackle climate change, everybody's still doing their own thing. There isn't consensus on the right thing to do. How are we going to convince countries to work together, and how are we going to regulate something on a global scale? And what will be in the Bletchley Accord?
Well, we've already published the Bletchley Declaration. That came out before the summit even started and showed an agreement for the first time by 28 nations around the world. And I've spoken to many of my counterparts from the likes of Kenya to Australia to Canada to China, and there is an appreciation that we do need to work together on these risks. And there is a lack of understanding of the risk. So one of the things that will come out of the summit is the formation of a panel, and that panel will be producing a regular state of science report around the research on this, so our research can keep track. The other thing that we've already announced is that our task force, the one that I spoke about a moment ago, will become an institute, the world's first ever institute in this area, and they will actually be evaluating those models. So the government will be doing those third-party evaluations, utilising expertise, and it will work with a similar just announced that they are going to set up yesterday. Another thing that we've been doing is injecting more transparency and getting the companies to do more themselves. So we're seeing considerable progress from what is really a landmark summit, the first of its kind that we as the UK have convened here at Bletchley Park.
I admire the intentions. I admire the idealism for all of that, Secretary of State. But it's about power, it's about influence, it's about wealth. Whoever controls AI will control all of those things. So let's take a war situation. Let's take Russia and Ukraine. There is a scenario where that could be plotted, planned, fought out by AI in years to come. What's going on between Israel and Gaza could be exactly the same. And whoever has the upper hand with AI rules the world.
Yeah, so I don't want you to think, Eamonn, that in this country we're not regulating AI. That's far from it. In fact, we have several regulators across the board. And what we did here was we published a white paper earlier in the year which set out the principles we want our regulators to work to. And we're going to come back to that white paper later this year. But what we're saying is it's not enough just to take a domestic approach. We need to take an international one as well. That's why we need to work closely with countries from all over the world, including, in fact, China, who we've invited to this summit, which speaks volumes for the fact that we get it as a nation. We're on the front foot. Just last week, we were the first country in the world to publish a document summarising the risks from the perspective of both scientists and our national security team. So we're being transparent and open with the public, but we're also tackling this in a proactive fashion.
Since we're talking about Israel and Gaza a little bit there, I have to ask you about the news that has to be welcomed about the first Britons being freed through the Rafah crossing. The Foreign Secretary saying he will not rest now until all of the Brits are recovered. But we're not clear yet on a number, are we, of how many Brits need to be recovered? And can you give us assurances that more will be coming out today?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that my heart goes out to everybody that's impacted, the Israeli people and also the Palestinians who themselves have been held hostage to Hamas, and it is awful what they're going through. And my heart goes out to the families up and down the UK that are waiting on loved ones to return. You're quite right. The Foreign Office have said that some people have managed to get over that border, and we are anticipating that there will be more coming. We haven't spoken out with an exact number as of yet, but I know that the border force stand ready and that our teams on the ground have been in touch with many individuals, and there is a list of people that are British nationals. 200, I believe, is the figure that I have, and our focus is on getting them out as quickly as we possibly can.
Secretary of State, we appreciate your time today. We hope you have a good conference and that lots of good things develop from it. Thank you for your time, and we have to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Same to you. Thank you very much indeed. So there you are. That's AI, and that's the government's stance on it. We'll take a break. Back after this.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We're starting the day with Storm Kieran bringing wet and windy weather across many parts of the UK, but the most disruptive and damaging wind gusts moving along the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, and certainly northern France and the Channel Islands seeing some very destructive wind gusts. Now, the worst of the conditions across southwestern areas will tend to ease into the afternoon, but by this stage the winds are strengthening across southeastern parts with the risk in places of 70 or even 80 plus mile-per-hour wind gusts, bringing widespread disruption, especially around southern coastal areas, the risk of damaging gusts and dangerous coastal conditions. Elsewhere, we've got spells of rain. That rain, heavy and persistent across eastern Scotland, northeast England, could cause some disruption in places. Likewise for Wales and the southwest, we're likely to see a large amount of rain through the day, clearing to showers later. Western Scotland, Northern Ireland seeing showers through the day, but certainly spared the worst from Storm Kieran. And by the start of tomorrow, well, still a blustery day out there, and frequent showers, but certainly less wet and windy overall, and there will be some brightness in between the showers, those showers predominantly affecting the north and east of Scotland, northeast England, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. In between, some drier and brighter interludes, feeling on the cool side, however, 13 to 14 Celsius in the south, 11 to 12 further north.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good morning. It is exactly 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 2nd of November, and this is Breakfast with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Very nice to have you on board, leading the news this morning.
Danger to life warnings as Storm Kieran batters parts of Britain, closing schools, grounding flights and plunging communities underwater.
Commuters in parts of England have been advised to work from home today. There could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain head north of the country. Aidan McGivern has the latest.
Storm Kieran is currently bearing down across southern parts of the UK. I'll have the full details on this storm in the forecast coming up.
Some British nationals stranded in Gaza have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt, but the war is raging on. The United Nations now say the bombing of an established refugee camp could be a war crime. Our security editor Mark White is in South Israel.
Here in southern Israel, overlooking Gaza, the sound of explosions is constant as the Israeli military says it has now broken through Hamas's frontline defences.
Thank you, Mark. Back to Mark shortly. The AI summit, we've just been talking about it. It continues today at Bletchley Park. World leaders, including US Vice President Kamala Harris, will meet business and tech leaders to discuss the risks and benefits of artificial intelligence.
And Paul Coit will be here with all the latest in sport, including Man United.
Oh, there is a storm of brewing around Old Trafford at the moment, I'll tell you. 3-0 that Manchester United lost last night. Daniil Medvedev and his sneaky swearing, and also I have a cycling world record in its entirety.
What are you talking about, his sneaky swearing?
Sneaky swearing. Sneaky swearing.
He wondered had he broken his fingernail.
Yes. And what was he doing whilst he was looking at his fingernail?
Don't know. What?
He was sneaky swearing. That's what he was doing. He was lifting certain one finger higher than the others.
Well, do you know, once I was on TV and directors, as directors do, have a little world of their own, and they tend to cut you up if you scratch yourself or do something.
Yeah.
But I simply said this. I said, I did camera two, right? That's what that means. Give me camera 2.
Oh. Harvey Smith.
Some people thought that was sneaky swearing.
I thought it was full-on swearing, wasn't it? Getting me worried for a second. People don't do that like they used to, though.
No.
You don't get that like you used to, the old two-finger salute.
Do you remember the row with Harvey Smith?
I do remember.
It must have been early 70s.
It was about 70, 71, yeah. Hicks did, around that.
So basically he turned around to the judges and he gave them the two-finger salute at the end of all of this. And it was scandal.
Absolute disgrace.
I'm not sure if it ended his career or started his career.
Horse of the Year show was never the same after that, was it?
No, that's a good one. Get us a picture of that next time you're
I'm
back.
trying.
Okay.
I may have to demonstrate, although I'll never work again.
Thank you very much indeed. Better still, get a picture of me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You can join in any of our discussions. What do you think about sign language swearing? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. And the storms. The thing is, we want to see pictures of the storms. We want to hear what you're experiencing, and we're going to get all of that on air, as you will see very, very shortly.
And Storm Kieran is our top story this morning. It has been a wet and windy night for many overnight as it's been wreaking havoc. Strong winds of up to 80 miles an hour expected in some coastal areas. OK, Hampshire, major incident declared there, and Isle of Wight as well. Storm warnings that all this disruption could pose a risk to life. Well, the Met Office has issued an amber warning for wind and multiple yellow warnings throughout the day. Schools and airports in the Channel Islands. We're going to feature the Channel Islands quite strongly because they have taken a heck of a battering. Those schools and hospitals are going to shut down today as they brace for some of the worst weather conditions in 36 years. But the wild weather certainly isn't isolated to the South. Northern Ireland's already facing heavy flooding, with some rivers bursting their banks just as the storm is approaching. RAC telling drivers in the southwest of England to avoid coastal and rural roads. Greater chance of falling trees on those roads. Well, joining us now is Jess Morger. She's a GB News viewer. She wrote into us this morning about the chaos in Guernsey. And we read out your email a little bit earlier, Jess. You talked about having a pretty wild night, your daughter being frightened and joining you into bed. How bad is it where you are? Tell us about the night so far. Good morning.
So it's sort of morning, everybody. It started off quite quietly, and then about sort of 2:30 this morning, my daughter Isabella came into our room because she was quite nervous. It was very noisy. Her window faces west and really getting a battering. Right now, I'm sort of we're looking at the charts. It looks like it's hitting over 100 here in the Channel Islands, and we're in the sort of depth of the storm, as it were, at the moment. I think our government's made the correct decision. All schools have been closed today. People are being advised to stay at home unless absolutely necessary for your journey. We've got reports of over 20 trees down across the island, blocking the roads, and in our little island, that's going to create chaos. As I know Eamonn's familiar with our lovely little island.
Yes.
Yeah. Something's literally just blown into the garden, whether it's from our roof, someone else's roof, I don't know. I've got reports from friends who live along the west coast already getting battered because it's high tides now, so that's just going to exacerbate the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jess, answer me this. You're inside today. Your family's going to stay inside with you. No one's travelling anywhere. Do you feel that's the right thing to do? What would it take to get you out and about today? And what I'm saying is, basically, do you have enough provisions in the house to switch on the telly, watch a movie and just chill?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been ridiculous panic buying since the government announced that schools would close on Tuesday. I think it gave businesses time to make decisions to close their businesses, and pretty much every single supermarket, convenience outlet is closed now until at least 12, and most are closed for the rest of the day. And so I think it has been the right decision. I've stood outside the back garden, interestingly, just before, and was kind of trying to stand up. And ironically, where I was standing about 5 minutes before is where something's just flown past. So absolutely, I credit to our emergency services who are obviously out and about, but I've never known anything like this.
Yeah, but you sound very calm. Does that mean that you think the worst has passed through?
From what I can fathom, actually, the worst is going to be in the next, has been sort of from the last hour and the next hour as well. Looking at the charts, the sort of 100-mile-per-hour winds are sort of around now, and then it will drop down. And I think now that it's becoming daylight, people are going to be able to assess the situation. The trees that were down were ones that the emergency services had noticed on main roads. But as you know, we've got lots of tiny little roads, and like I say, the west coast is going to take a battering. I think high tide's coming up to 8 o'clock or something like that.
Do you know, Jess? You said there that I know the island, and it was there earlier this year around Easter time, and you're absolutely right. That's what I remember. It was very like Ireland in a way, except your roads were smaller. There's so many small roads, one vehicle at a time, sort of passing each other. But trees. It's such a green island as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there isn't a road that you would go down, I don't think, that there isn't trees. Or if you try to take a coastal route, there's that's obviously of danger as well today. So I suppose we really do feel cut off. But I mean, the panic buying in the shops has been hilarious the last few days. I mean, why people think they'll run out of toilet roll in 24 hours. But yeah, milk going off the shelves, people fighting over loaves of bread. It's been crazy.
That's incredible. Crazy, crazy, crazy. The main thing is, Jess, you and your family stay safe. I'm getting the impression you're up, you're battening down the hatches, you're making sure the house is safe, you're probably cooking breakfast and everybody else is sleeping.
Isabella's just got up. She was a bit nervous. Oh, blimey.
So you stay safe, Jess.
Yeah, so, it's battening down the hatches, using our pumpkin to make pumpkin pie, and staying safe.
Oh, that's a great idea. Jess, thanks very much. I'll tell you what we're going to do now, Jess. We're going to say goodbye to you. Please do stay safe. And we're going to bring in, who are we bringing in?
We have Jim Dale from the British Weather Services. And Jim, I'm just reading that we're hearing winds of up to 104 miles per hour recorded, and 40 people have already been evacuated from their homes in Jersey. So, as predicted by you and as we've been discussing, the Channel Islands getting the brunt of it at the moment.
That's where it is. That's the centre of it. And a little bit north of that into Cornwall and Devon, these sort of places are seeing quite strong winds. And on the other side, actually, East Sussex, West Sussex and Kent at this moment in time, seeing 60, 70 mile an hour gusts. It is very regionalised. I'm sat here in central southern England and you're saying, what storm? And it's a bit like that because people will be waking up thinking, where is it? Where is it? So look, the circulation at the moment is down. The actual centre is off the Dorset coast. So there, it's not particularly strong. It's the centre of the eye. It's often calm there, but I think winds will pick up. Got to watch the circulation of the showers within the storm, because those things, as they pass through you, have the capability of picking up and producing gusts very, very quickly, damaging kind of gusts. So it's not over yet, not over by far until the old fat lady sings.
But Jim, can you explain to us in any way? You know, at 3 o'clock this morning, I was just feeling the rain coming down. It was nothing awful about it. I mean, the rain was heavy, and I just want to know, how much rain is there in the sky? Where does this rain come from?
Well, it does come from the sky, but I'll tell you where it actually comes from. It migrates itself off the oceans. That's where it comes from. This is an Atlantic storm, and the oceans across the summer have reached record temperatures. So that energy has got to transfer at some point, and at this time of year, it's a normal thing for it to do that. But it's obviously got excess energy within it, so it lifts up. The atmosphere can then hold more water because it's that little bit warmer. Hence the reason why Storm Babette, and this particular storm is doing what it's doing in laying down not just the winds that you're seeing in and around, but also the heavyweight rain and the showers that will follow, and even more rain to come on Saturday. That might not be a named storm, but certainly it will add to the pile.
Jim?
I'm just hearing that there's been some tornado activity, not just in Britain, but across northern France as well. Just explain what that will mean for people who are experiencing it, or what they can do to protect themselves in case it arrives where they are.
Wow, what a good question. I tell you what to do in a tornado, and they're spawned from cumulonimbus clouds. That's where they come from, the only cloud that can contain tornadoes in the circulation. And when you see them, they're fairly rare events. Thing to do is go low, go to the center of your house. That's the most protected area. You stay away from windows, and you certainly don't venture out. That's the few tips I can give you at this moment in time.
Appreciate it, Jim. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Chaotic situation out and about. Some of you, I mean, particularly if you're from Ireland, you'll find that quite a normal day. What's been going on. We're going to be crossing to Ireland shortly to get the picture from Portadown.
Now, with the latest from the Rafah crossing, lots of ambulances have been taking the most seriously injured out of Gaza and into the safety of Egypt.
First British nationals have been bussed out. About 44 different nationalities have been trapped inside Gaza since the 7th of October atrocities.
The United Nations says Israeli strikes on a refugee camp in Gaza, which killed a Hamas commander, as well as dozens of others, could amount to a war crime. The International Criminal Court says it's investigating possible breaches of international law by Hamas and the Israeli military.
In Minnesota, President Biden says he welcomes safe passage of Americans from Gaza. Have a listen.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. Working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible.
Now, we're going to go to our security editor, Mark White, who is in Israel, but he's with, as I understand it, Mark, you're with Israeli Defense Forces there and seeing what they're up to and what the next move is. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Yeah, we're in a position in southern Israel, actually overlooking Gaza, and there is the constant sound of explosions, as there has been really for several days now. It's literally constant, I kid you not. I'm just going to step out of the way and allow our cameraman Ben to get a shot down. It's a bit hazy and quite a bit of smoke, as you would understand, coming from Gaza, but he's a talented cameraman. I'm sure he can pick up some of what you're seeing. This is northern Gaza that you're looking at, and it comes as the Israeli Defense Forces have said this morning that they have broken through Hamas's frontline defences in northern Gaza, and to quote one commander, "We are at the gates of Gaza City. Now, reports coming out of northern Gaza say very, very heavy night of bombardment from the Israelis with quite a lot of explosions around the Al-Quds hospital in northern Gaza. You remember that was one of the hospitals where there were repeated warnings from the Israelis to get out of that hospital. Of course, the medical staff there have decided to stay because they say they've got some very critically injured patients that they just simply can't move. So the explosions have been sounding not on the hospital, but certainly around the hospital and all over parts of northern Gaza, even into southern Gaza. Those explosions are continuing. And the cost is not just heavy in terms of the Hamas terrorists that the Israeli Defence Forces say they have taken out in very significant numbers, but IDF troops are coming under very significant fire from Hamas, according to the IDF. They have come in overnight for anti-tank missile strikes. Explosive devices, improvised explosive devices have been detonated near them. And of course, there have been small arms fire. Grenades have been hurled at them. We know so far that the toll in terms of IDF forces has risen to 17 Israeli soldiers who have been shot. We saw just before you came to us 10-15 minutes ago a very large explosion in northern Gaza with a huge plume of smoke going into the air. And although we're hearing constant explosions at the moment, we're not seeing those big plumes of smoke that are going into the air at the moment. As for the Rafah crossing down in the south of Gaza, where it opened yesterday, of course, to allow about 400 people across. 335 of those were foreign nationals. They included some from the UK, the US, Australia, Indonesia, and multiple other countries. Well, today we're told that the hope is that that crossing can open again in a limited capacity to allow another 500 or so, including some more injured, across the border into Egypt for treatment. And more of those British nationals who are waiting to get out. The UK government have managed to make contact with about 200 British nationals. We don't know if all of those have said that they want to leave. You can't imagine that they want to stay, but it's possible. And of course, it's also possible that there are other British nationals or dual citizens who haven't yet made contact with the British government. So still an extremely fluid situation on the ground, to say the very least, as these explosions continue overhead from Israeli jets, from artillery fire just next to our position, and also from the troops on the ground, their tank fire and alike as they push forward into northern Gaza.
Well, you stay safe there, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for that update and from that position that you're in. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom with the time at 18 minutes past 7.
The GMB community and Unite unions have condemned the upcoming closing of a Tata steel plant in Port Talbot, one of the UK's biggest steelworks.
Over the last 7 months, the Metropolitan Police has recorded 987 crimes relating to ULEZ cameras. Those include 220 reports of cameras being stolen, 767 being damaged. Only 5 people, though, have been arrested over damage relating to these cameras since the London Mayor announced the expansion of the clean air zone.
The City of Edinburgh Council is set to declare a housing emergency, with the city's homelessness figure reaching a new high. Council figures show approximately 5,000 households in the capital are in temporary accommodation. That's the highest in Scotland.
Look, we've been covering and discovering and hearing from you about how wild the weather is out there. So that's first-hand. Get your videos to us, gbviews@gbnews.com. And indeed, if you want to talk to us, we'll be happy to talk to you. In the meantime, let's get the picture and we go to our weather forecaster for that. Here we go.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We're starting the day with Storm Kieran bringing wet and windy weather across many parts of the UK, but the most disruptive and damaging wind gusts moving along the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, and certainly northern France and the Channel Islands seeing some very destructive wind gusts. Now, the worst of the conditions across southwestern areas will tend to ease into the afternoon, but by this stage the winds are strengthening across southeastern parts with the risk in places of 70 or even 80 plus mile-per-hour wind gusts, bringing widespread disruption, especially around southern coastal areas, the risk of damaging gusts and dangerous coastal conditions. Elsewhere, we've got spells of rain. That rain, heavy and persistent across eastern Scotland, northeast England, could cause some disruption in places. Likewise for Wales and the southwest, we're likely to see a large amount of rain through the day, clearing to showers later. Western Scotland, Northern Ireland seeing showers through the day, but certainly spared the worst from Storm Kieran. And by the start of tomorrow, well, still a blustery day out there, and frequent showers, but certainly less wet and windy overall, and there will be some brightness in between the showers, those showers predominantly affecting the north and east of Scotland, northeast England, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. In between, some drier and brighter interludes, feeling on the cool side, however, 13 to 14 Celsius in the south, 11 to 12 further north.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Hey, have you seen this story about mice in McDonald's? If you haven't, this is the man they're hunting for. But let's see the mice, please, if we can. There are the mice. Oh, my goodness me. Several incidents. This is in the Midlands. Live rodents being thrown into McDonald's restaurants. That man has been arrested. They're now searching for a 30-year-old Bilal Hussein. Footage shared on social media shows these mice in another McDonald's. 2 incidents earlier this week so far. And it's all about, Isabel?
Well, it's all about Palestine. You saw his number plate there, almost trying to say Palestine. It's coordinated, very organised, and they seem to think McDonald's has sort of pro-Israel stance in all of this.
Well, this is about, because basically in Israel, McDonald's donated meals to soldiers there and security workers. So this is the revenge being wreaked with all of this. We're going to go to our reporter, Jack Carson, who's across all of this. Well, this is certainly different, Jack.
Yeah, it certainly is. Of course, yesterday the police confirmed that within their investigations, of course, within the first 2 incidents that happened over at the Star City Leisure Complex just outside the city centre and also in Perry Bar, after those mice attacks in those McDonald's restaurants, they had been investigating those. They confirmed yesterday that they had arrested a 32-year-old man. As you mentioned, Eamonn, a 30-year-old Bilal Hussein is also someone that the police suspect of being involved in those attacks. They want to speak to him around, of course, what the police are calling a public nuisance offences. They have carried out a number of warrants in search for their arrest. Of course, it was yesterday when they announced they were looking for 2 people. Of course, they have arrested, as I said, that 32-year-old man in connection with these events. Small Heath, the McDonald's behind me here, that was the 3rd McDonald's in Birmingham that was attacked by mice a couple of days ago on the same day as the same McDonald's in Perry Bar. So these are very locally organised, it seems, here in Birmingham. But of course, we also had, of course, in Keighley, in Bradford, of course, the McDonald's there, that was attacked by somebody throwing stick insects at the staff and on the floor in that McDonald's there. As well as McDonald's, it's not just those, the big global company that these pro-Palestine protesters are boycotting. It's Starbucks and it's Disney as well. Also in Keighley, in Bradford, the Starbucks, there had its windows smashed with hammers, and the police confirmed that they have also arrested a man in his 20s. West Yorkshire police say in their investigations into that.
Well, we're glad those investigations are going ahead. But here's what I don't understand. Besides the cruelty to animals, because they're condemning all these mice to instant death as soon as the pest controllers get in there, where do you get hundreds? Who has hundreds of mice ready on tap to scoop up, attack 3 restaurants?
With a car registration, all on message. It's all very organised and coordinated. Yeah.
But I'd like to know, you suddenly say, I need 300 mice when I need them by tomorrow because we're going to paint them in the colours of the Palestinian flag. Where the heck do you get 300 mice from?
Well, on that point, I did have a look yesterday, actually, and I could buy quite a few mice from local pet shops around Birmingham for about £5 each. So they are readily available because, of course, people keep live reptiles like snakes, which often feed on things like live mice. They are available within pet shops around cities, around towns. Of course, the number of the mice being used is the question of whether these people are going to multiple pet shops all at once, or whether there is a more wholesale, I guess, supplier of these mice in which these people are able to go and find them. And that's, of course, when they're then able to go and then paint, as you say, spray paint them in boxes, put them in boxes and then throw them into the McDonald's.
Yeah, and of course there's the health and safety risk in all of this. You know, that is a fast food chain at the end of the day, and they are rodents, so a total nightmare in terms of business for McDonald's. We should say a spokesperson for McDonald's said the firm was dismayed, and they described that their portrayal of their position on the Middle East was inaccurate. Thank you for that, Jack Carson. We'll be speaking to you a little bit later on.
But you know, that will be me finished, because I have a phobia with mice.
Yeah, you can never go there again.
Well, imagine hundreds of mice running around your feet.
I know, but
like
mice
that.
are actually quite sweet.
£5 for a mouse?
No, I'd scream and I'd squeal, but they are sweet.
So would you think you'd pay a £5 for...
No, I wouldn't. I'd go and get them for free in my house.
We used to eat mice when I was young. We used to have sweetie mice.
Oh, right.
So they're sweet.
Oh,
well, what, did you think...
Not
those Irish, the barbarians.
No, because I knew you had them in your welly boots and that used to terrify you.
Yes.
Scared you for life.
I had them, so that was that.
Oh,
but
dear.
Is there any end to the crassness, the grossness, the stupidness?
But it's social media as well that has made this a thing.
Yeah,
you know, it's all a stunt. It's all over TikTok. It shouldn't be on
culture.
TikTok. It shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. Let us know your views, gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet at gbnews.
And, of course, it is just a form of protest. We've seen lots of different forms of that since the Hamas attack on October the 7th, and the UK has seen this wave of them on both sides of the conflict, some peaceful, some less so, and the head of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark Rowley, has claimed that his officers have arrested at least 100 protesters in the last 3 weeks.
But many are still asking if the police are tough enough after a number of incidences at McDonald's, which you've just seen there. And joining us to debate this, writer and presenter Conor Tomlinson. Good morning, Conor.
Morning.
Who says police have lost the plot, and former Met Police Superintendent Leroy Logan, who believes the police are doing the best they can. So, Leroy, why is this the best they can? Just to, you think the police are between a rock and a hard place?
Yes, it's a thankless task, and people know how to get around these issues, whether it's through the way in which they conduct themselves and the way in which they know the line, how to draw the line. So the fact that lawyers are with police officers observing these protesters is to ensure that if they breach the law, they are going to have a good, close chance, or a good chance of getting a prosecution. And as a result of that, they will know the nuances of whether a case is not strong or not. So I think they need advice, they need support. There's a lot of nuances to this, knowing what's a proscribed organisation, Hamas, Hezbollah, how it is being supported, or inviting people to acknowledge these prescribed organisations, and are they showing displays or banners or whatever. So I think it's a good support, because they want to ensure they get a good conviction at court.
Not surprised, though, Conor, that you think the police have lost the plot. I mean, we've heard time and again of the problems within the Met Police being institutionally racist, homophobic, misogynistic, and there have been lots of criticism of them going and tearing down posters, appealing for information about missing children, victims of the Hamas hostage-taking within Gaza, and people saying this is outrageous.
Well, they also went and, as Nigel Farage covered on his show last night, arrested a man who complained on Facebook about Palestinian flags being flown in Bethnal Green High Street. Now, even if you object to the way that he phrased it, he is allowed to turn around and say these protests, which, bear in mind, were not in a response to Israeli aggression. They were started in response to Hamas killing innocent civilians. They are distasteful. And so we have to turn around and say, why are we dealing with this problem? I mean, I've been at the ARC conference this week, and there are lots of very well-intentioned, smart people sitting in a room and saying, imagine all the problems we could solve if we put our minds to it. And one of the reasons we can't solve a lot of those problems is because we're dealing with distractions like this. We should not be dealing with 100,000 terrorist supporters in London streets. And there's two reasons we are. First of all, it's because, frankly, the will of the British people has been denied at every single election, and we have imported people from an incompatible culture over here who have allied with Hamas because they believe that they share some kind of end goal because of religious or ethnic tribal loyalties, but also because of a lack of the will by the Met Police to enforce the law cutting in the same direction. And we can see the contrast between how they treated lockdown protesters with very heavy hands with this. And Louise Perry, fantastic writer, has compared this to essentially trying to placate a abusive partner with the knowledge that if you offend them, they will attack you. The implication here is that the Met Police know this population, this protest movement is a very volatile group, and so they would rather oppress the people that are criticising Hamas terrorists than offend the sensibilities of the terrorist supporters. We should not have to put up with that.
What would you do with the mouse patrol?
As in?
What would you do with them?
Lock them up permanently. If they're British citizens, detain them indefinitely. I think we should bring back public flogging, honestly, because if they're trying to make themselves famous on TikTok, then at least you can make an example of them.
Leroy?
He's accusing the Met of losing the plot. He's lost the plot. I mean, in all honesty, I think you just need to remind yourself that there is a legal right to protest peacefully, whether you like the terms or the way in which they do it. Then that's down to interpretation of the law. And as I said, people know how to do these things. They do it in different ways, you know, mice, all sorts of things. And they're very ingenious around these things. And sometimes they know the loopholes of the law and how to operate. So I think, like everything, we just need to understand that everyone's got a different point of view. They have a right to protest.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I don't see that as peaceful protest. I think, Vincent, if I was in there, I could go into shock because I've got this phobia about mice. But look at those people there. Think of the workers there. Look at that. The shock that causes. See, I think that is a violence, and I agree with Connor. And I think that shouldn't be laughed at and say, oh, just a few wee mice. Bloomin' hundreds of the things.
No, I wasn't laughing about the mice issue. I was laughing about his attitude about bringing back public flogging. I totally agree that, you know, that is, again, extremely traumatizing for a lot of people. You know, some people think mice are sweet, other people find it traumatizing. So, yeah, again, this has to be tested in the courts, and the CPS is the best form of judging this.
Leroy, do you think that the police have got the balance right around these protests that we've seen at the weekend, people calling for jihad and the head of the CPS saying, well, some of this is open to interpretation? It seems pretty clear to me that a lot of that constitutes a hate crime. What do you think?
Well, we're in the hands of the lawyers here, and they have these lawyers for judging when there's counter-terrorism action, you know, where they've committing a plot or they're organising or in some way or fashion. So these lawyers are very experienced. So it's not like they've been treating these incidences with some sort of kitten gloves or anything like that. They're taking these incidences seriously. They're trying to say, well, listen, let's get it right first time so that we don't put people before the courts and it gets kicked out and then the Met has to apologise and maybe have to compensate. They want to get it right first time.
OK. Gentlemen, got to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed. Thank you. Right, let's get to Paul and see what's happening in the world of sport.
I'm glad you're laughing. Let's keep it that way.
If you have the choice of a mouse and Manchester United losing, I mean, what's the worst thing for you? You know, what is it?
I think you choose the mice.
You can hold a mouse, but United will win the title.
Oh, the title.
Yeah, you can have the title, but you've got to have the mouse for a while.
I'd hold the mouse.
You're going to take the mouse.
Wow.
I would.
Take the mouse.
I would. If it was the League Cup, I might say no.
We'll leave the mouse for the League Cup. The title, I'll take the mouse.
Yeah.
Well, look, and it's not going to happen League Cup this year then, Carabao Cup. So Manchester United lost to Newcastle 3-0. Another 3-0 loss. It's not good. There's not a lot of fight there. Doesn't look as if there's a lot of interest. It's a worrying time for United, and I think a very worrying time for Erik ten Hag because I can't see him lasting through this, you know, Eamonn. I've got to be honest with you. If we look at Ajax and how he was at Ajax, young players, very hungry young players, and he was the governor there, and they looked up to him and they played the way he wanted. He goes to a big club like United, and if you haven't got, it's the old cliche, if you lose the dressing room, then you're done. And I have a feeling, from what I see, that that's probably...
It's lost. It hasn't been lost at Newcastle, though, the dressing room.
No, completely opposite. I mean, Newcastle looked terrific, so as good as Newcastle were, and Manchester United the opposite. Yeah. West Ham, they did great result for them beating Arsenal yesterday. Arsenal made 6 changes. So again, there's going to be Arsenal fans, and always fans that will say, why do you make so many changes? We want to go to Wembley, we want to win a trophy. So it didn't happen for them. Liverpool beat Bournemouth, and also the other results. Everton beat Burnley. They're continuing great. Ipswich lost to Fulham, and Chelsea beat Blackburn.
The Chelsea thing was... I was hoping for a Chelsea win last night because our very dear friends, their son, was on the bench last night.
Oh,
so
really?
Raised from the youth team. You know, to give them that experience, mixing around the first team and all that sort of thing. Leo Castledine, look out for that.
Leo. And also Pochettino is fantastic with young players.
Young people.
So I hope he doesn't play on Monday against Spurs, because then I won't wish him well. We've got time for a little tennis.
Yes,
Medvedev.
please. Yeah.
We should do that. He lost to Grigor Dimitrov yesterday. I mean, I love a fit of peak. I mean, with tennis, I love McEnroe. And the thing with Daniil Medvedev, he started upsetting the crowd because he did the throw. There we are. This is some of the game yesterday. He throws the racket down, and the Paris fans, because this is the Paris Masters, they don't like a bad boy. So they start booing him, which then upsets him even more. So as he walks away, the booing continues. That's him going, now be quiet, because he says, I will refuse to play unless the crowd go quiet. And obviously that gets the crowd going even more. Finished the game. He loses in straight sets. It was a shock defeat because he's the third seed. But then after the game, now this is the thing that we mentioned earlier, is that he walks away and he pretends to be fixing his
Drop
nails.
the caption there, get rid of that caption.
And he pretends to fix his nails, and what he actually does is kind of like flicking his middle finger in the direction of the crowd. And when people say, well, what were you doing? He's going, no.
Are we going to see it?
I was just fixing... No, I've decided
You've decided not to?
I don't think we will have that. We've got the tennis, we get the idea, and as he walks away... I'd kind of demonstrate he's doing this, but can you imagine one of the fingers being raised?
I like this creeping into tennis, and I'm with the crowds in Paris. You know, it all started with the bad boy Kyrgios, and I just...
Oh, it started a long time before
Well, maybe,
then.
OK, but it got exacerbated by him. No, I think it's... look, there used to be outbursts of anger and things on court, but this kind of outrageous use of gestures and things towards the crowd, that's not...
I agree. I mean, it's pantomime. That's what it's like.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be in
But
tennis.
you saw it with Jimmy Connors, you saw it with McEnroe.
Were they rude to the crowd?
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
Rude to everybody.
I mean, the thing is, it's like the spoilt kid that can't have what he wants and just throws his toys out the pram and goes crazy. It's like, everybody's against me. It's not fair. And this is what's going on. I've got one more, though. I've got a world record.
Which is?
To you. It is the cycling 1 kilometre time trial world record. How fast do you think? Can we run that now? I think we've got this. This is... Dutch rider Jeffrey Hoogland. So he set a new world record. It was in Mexico at the Aguas.
So he's going to do 1 kilometre here, and in what time then?
1 kilometre. So how fast do you reckon, Eamonn? What do you think? 1K.
15 seconds.
Oh,
50? No, 1 kilometre. So you can't do 50.
I'm going to say 55 seconds. Okay.
I don't even know how long a kilometre is. It's 3/4 of a mile, isn't it?
55 seconds. 55.433 seconds. You're on the money. Look, there he is going there, and he's gone to Mexico to do it because it's at altitude. We've already seen...
He'll go faster.
Absolutely.
The air's thinner.
Absolutely. It's about 1,000 feet high. You can hear all the crowds going crazy. There we are. That's the time he's got to beat, because it was a second above that was set... 20 years ago was the last time this was broken. So this has stood for a very long time. He's got his people with him, and he's wearing the gear that he's wearing. He's a world champion. That's what they wear on the stripes. He's coming in to do it now.
It's a very long 55 seconds.
I tell you what, it might seem like it to you, and it seemed even longer to him, I imagine. But there we are. He's done it. 55 seconds. New world record. And we've already seen one sombrero of the week with Max Verstappen. There's our second sombrero
of the week.
There it is.
Very good, my friend.
It's all Paris and Mexico at the moment, isn't it? It's where all the action's at.
Jeffrey Hoogland from...
Hoogland.
Until somebody comes along and throws mice all over the track or something like that.
Stop, don't give them ideas.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
God bless.
Stay with us. Still to come, are our famous Red Arrows sexist? Certainly appears so, according to some of the group. It is full of male entitlement. We'll be looking at that next.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's on your teeth.
It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
So what are we going to talk about? Do you know what I want to talk about? Those mice. I can't get them out of my head. I just can't get them out of the head. So you're standing there minding your own business in a McDonald's restaurant. I always laugh when it was a restaurant that we were in. No, you were in a takeaway. And
some people eat in.
It's not a restaurant.
People eat in.
Oh, it's you say, why is McDonald's a restaurant? You would believe all the rubbish that they... I'm not talking the food rubbish. I'm talking about the terminology. But anyway, look at those mice. Scarlett, what do you think of those mice? If you were in there having your burger or your Oreo milky or shake or whatever it is,
well,
what would you...
as somebody who doesn't eat meat, but yeah, no, I would have found it quite frightening at the beginning, and I also know people who are totally paranoid about mice and would never go into a McDonald's again.
Ever again, yeah, it's terrible for McDonald's, to be honest, to think how they're going to get people back in through those doors.
What do you think?
I think it's cruel as well. Those poor mice, the way they were chucked on the floor like that and just kept in those boxes, all piled on top of each other.
Where do you get 300 mice?
I don't know. I mean, maybe you could go to various pet shops and, you know, unscrupulous pet shops who just sell you mice by the bulk.
They do breed very rapidly.
Yeah.
Not that rapidly.
Should we stay with the rodent theme? Because obviously he was in the jungle, wasn't he, Matt? And he probably had to deal with a few rodents. I wasn't suggesting for 1 second that he was a rodent. However, Helen McNamara wasn't his biggest fan. She described him as having nuclear levels of overconfidence and pretended to be a cricketer batting off challenges during the pandemic. I have to say, her evidence yesterday, Scarlett, I quite enjoyed it. She seemed quite a breath of fresh air and sort of calling out bad boy behaviour, which is always a pleasure.
I mean, it's quite interesting. So on the one hand, she said that the atmosphere was so toxic that in meetings, no women were talking, right? So therefore, nobody was talking about the problems of childcare, which Candice can talk about just how tough that was. You had the ridiculous Gavin Williamson as Secretary of State for Education, so he wasn't caring about children. And she goes on as to say, you know, that one assumed that Matt Hancock would have a plan because he kept saying he had a plan, and then one discovered that he hadn't. On the other hand, this was the woman, and she talked about how they broke the rules every single day,
including
at number
her.
10. But this was a woman who took a karaoke machine to a party at number 10 during the pandemic, during the lockdown. So, I mean, she was part of the problem. I think the whole problem, I mean, it's quite interesting that about the whole, you know, Boris being in charge and never being able to make up his mind and everything, is Stephen Bush in the Financial Times said, and is the Pope a Catholic? We all knew this about Boris Johnson. We knew the Prime Minister we were getting. I mean, to say...
Well, he's coming here, all that havoc that he wreaks, he's coming here to this station now to wreak more of it.
Oh, he'll be a big hit. I mean, he's...
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. He's
No,
going to
I
be
know he
presenter
is.
here.
I have read the papers, Eamonn. I just think he won't be running the station. So he'll just be mouthing off.
Doing what
so
he does
that's okay,
well.
which he
I can just
enjoys.
imagine him coming in, whether it's his newspaper columns or whatever. What are we writing? Who's doing this for me? And you can imagine that there are various people just writing his columns and things for him, or giving him rough ideas as to what he should be doing. But
I think it'll be a huge hit.
Well, I think it'd be a huge hit.
And, you know, it was, what was it, Lee Kane yesterday saying that his particular skill set was not great for the pandemic, but he
it's
does
great
have...
for GB News.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be.
I mean, frankly, if you read Anthony Seldon, who is no left-winger, Anthony Seldon's biography of Boris, his skill set was not the skill set you want in a Prime Minister, let alone during a pandemic.
It does worry me so much, though, like what Helen McNamara was saying, was the lack of breadth of perspective, though. I mean, you know, I had a one-year-old when the first lockdown was announced, and all of us in our mum group, our WhatsApp group, were like...
Didn't count.
Well, yeah, we didn't. We were like, how are we supposed to work and look after a one-year-old? It was impossible.
I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it was one of the worst experiences because there was no let-up, there was no childcare, trying to work at the same time, and children under that age, they need to get out the house, they need to be going to playgrounds, they need to be socialised, trapped inside. It was really, really hard. But I did have my husband. It was hard for him as well. It wasn't just for women, but...
Yes, it was parents, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the worst as well was women I know who had to give birth alone. I mean, that wasn't even
I had friends who had to do that.
Yes, so did I. Who didn't get their pain relief because they had no one to advocate for them, you know, whilst they were in pain. It was a mess. It was a real mess.
Scarlett, an effigy of Sadiq Khan will be put on top of a bonfire for Guy Fawkes Night in... Where's this going to be?
It's somewhere in Kent, Edenbridge. Edenbridge. And obviously the people of Edenbridge, because they said it was a very popular measure, wanted it. And there've been... I mean, in the past, there's been Boris Johnson, John Bercow, Liz Truss. I mean, obviously, this is all about ULEZ, the ultra-low emission zone. I mean, what's interesting about ULEZ is that it's working. I mean, people might have got very cross. I mean, actually, only 1 in 20 cars are now breaking and are paying the fine. 19 out of 20 cars are absolutely
Why
fine.
does that mean it's working? It just means they're paying the fine.
No, it means that most people have got clean cars, and actually the air pollution is going down, and the air pollution in central London has gone down massively.
What, in 2 weeks?
No, in central London, where we've had it for some years.
Right.
I mean, I am somebody who got rid of my car because it was going to fail ULEZ, so I thought, you know...
What did you have? What sort of car did you have?
I had a Skoda, so it was an old diesel.
What? So not an Octavia or anything like that, it was a smaller Skoda, was it?
It was a small one.
So that you have no idea really what your car was.
Of course not. It's just a
car. I have never met a woman that I say to her, I say, somebody called to the door. I said, what sort of car did he drive?
A blue one.
Yes, that's what I say. Always. It's a colour. It's a colour.
It's so weird, isn't it? Why men are so fixated on cars.
I mean, it's just a car, right?
Yeah, it starts early, though. My 7-year-old was talking about his Lamborghinis the other day.
I know.
Anyone that drives a Lamborghini has more money than sense. It costs more than the average home in this country.
Yeah.
It's immoral.
I agree with you.
And I was trying to brainwash him out of liking cars.
Can I ask you about storms? I mean, we're getting, and hopefully lots of you, please do get in touch today.
Oh, yeah.
GB News at GB Views or GB Views at GB News or whatever the heck it is. There it is. It's come up as if by magic. GBViews at gbnews.com. If you've got some pictures as to the devastation the storm Kieran is causing in your particular area, let us know. And if you want to talk to us, even better. You ever been in a storm?
Oh, yes. So when I lived in Johannesburg, those storms, those thunderstorms are incredible. If you love lightning and thunder and you like it super dramatic, go to Johannesburg.
But the scary thing, you were saying to me off camera about hailstones.
Oh, yes.
Now, that is, I mean, that's like fatal.
Yes, yeah, and you don't go out in those hailstones. I mean, there's no way. You retreat indoors, and they can break windscreens, actually. They're very powerful.
They can break skulls.
Oh, gosh, I've never...
worse than a windscreen.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
When you think about it. Scarlett?
Yes, I was driving a car which did have its windscreen broken by a hailstorm, which was not great. But also, I mean, so I was in Italy in the summer and I was picking up some people from the airport, and the storm was appalling. And I thought, no, I have to just drive through it very slowly. I have to get to this airport. And of course, I got to the airport and I got a text saying
flight cancelled.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
went round and round and round, and now we're in Bologna. So I had to say, so get the train, and then I had another hour driving to the train station.
The most terrifying storm for me, though, was when we took off on a flight from Johannesburg. And they're used to it, they're used to the storms.
Yeah.
But this one, I don't know what was going on, but the plane dropped like that. And everyone just went, like collective intake of breath. That was scary.
Any flight you survive is a good one. Just always remember that. Guys, thank you very much indeed. The guys are going to be back in 40 minutes' time.
Yeah, stay with us. Lots more wild weather for you coming this way. 104 miles per hour recorded so far. All the details in a moment.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
8 o'clock on the dot. Good morning. Very nice to have you on board. It's Thursday, the 2nd of November. I'm Eamonn Holmes, and this is Isabel Webster.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. Danger to life warnings as Storm Kieran batters parts of Britain and the Channel Islands. Wind speeds hits highs of 104 miles per hour in Jersey, closing schools and grounding flights.
Commuters in parts of England have been told to work from home. There could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain are heading northwards in the country. Let's go to Aidan McGivern for the latest.
Storm Kieran is currently bearing down across southern parts of the UK. I'll have the full details on this storm in the forecast coming up.
Oh, you're such a tease, Aidan.
Some British nationals stranded in Gaza have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt, but the war is raging on. The United Nations now saying that the bombing of an established refugee camp could have been a war crime. Our security editor Mark White has the latest from South Israel.
In southern Israel, overlooking northern Gaza, the sound of explosions is constant as a senior Israeli commander says that they have now broken through Hamas's frontline defences.
The AI summit continues today at Bletchley Park. World leaders, including US Vice President Kamala Harris, will meet business and tech leaders to discuss the risks and benefits of artificial intelligence.
And keep your pictures and your videos coming in to us of Storm Kieran. We'll try and show you lots of those this morning. I've seen people being rescued by tractors and people tying down garden furniture and the like, and lots of emails coming in from the Channel Islands as well. So thank you very much for those.
Well, Lizzie says that her balcony furniture's been rearranged. Rosa in Essex says, this morning my bestie Mandy walked for 40 minutes through the storm to get to the train station.
Wouldn't recommend that.
Well, it's going to end up okay for her because she's flying to Spain today, assuming her flight is not disrupted, of course, as well. Paul and Pool. That's a good nickname to have, isn't it? I'm Paul and Pool. Paul and Pool says it was a bit windy across Pool last night, but currently it's calm and still. That's the thing.
Could be in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, I just wonder, is it going to get any worse at all? And we'll find out very, very shortly. Karen in Solent says, woke up in Lee on the Solent and there was absolutely no wind at all. Last night was so noisy, but it's strange here today. As you say, the eye passes over and that's a whole different story.
Yes. Keep those thoughts coming in.
OK, Storm Kieran. We're going to start with that one. Who are we going to first? Let's go to somebody. Anyway, here's somebody here. Let's see who it is.
It's
Jeff Moody.
Oh,
and
dear,
somebody
Jeff.
else. Who?
It's your Doogie.
It's Doogie. Doogie's in Northern Ireland. I know that much. It's just a normal day for us, Doogie, I'd imagine.
Far from it, Eamonn. Over the last couple of days, we've had massive floods in Newry when the Clonroy River burst its banks along with the Newry Canal. Of course, those two rivers run from mid-Ulster, and we are now this morning in Portadown. You can see behind me, I'll just step out of the way a little bit. This is the main shopping area of Portadown. The River Bann yesterday threatened to burst its banks and did exactly that. Now, this is only one part of the River Bann. You can imagine it runs the whole way from Coleraine right down through here, and this river has caused mayhem here as it swole came out. But there has to be a reason for this, Eamonn. We have to look and see. We've had rain before. Northern Ireland's such a green place. It has lots of rain. Why is it bursting its banks? Is it that local councils are letting planning go ahead and not talking to one another and building on the floodplains? I mean, this place is known as the Meadows. The clues in that very name itself. And then you've got to look at farming, where that's going. You know, there's that much green issues now coming into farming. You're not allowed to clean the shucks out. Well, shucks for people in England would be called drains, because there may be newts, etc. in there, and there's not the money for it either in the single farm payment. I mean, to cut 100 metres of hedging now, they're talking about giving farmers £3 for cutting 100 metres of hedging. Would it pay them to clean out these shucks and rivers that flow in to the main rivers? And of course, when the ground's saturated because those rivers aren't cleaned out, does this happen? And really what we're seeing now is just the start of what's happening here in the next couple of days. We have been told down towards Banbridge that there is housing flooded, people who have worked all their lives to buy their houses, and next thing the river ban is coming through the back door and out the front. It is heartbreaking for these people, and of course government will have to answer questions on this, and there'll have to be some hard questions asked as who is going to pay for this at the end of the day.
Dougie, tell me, you and I are similar ages. I never, absolutely never, remember flooding when I was a youngster. Now, either that we were very lucky, but I used to sit at home watching the news, and you would see Bangladesh, you would see all parts of England, you would see the USA underwater, and you would say, well, thank goodness we live here. It may rain, but it doesn't land, it doesn't stay there. Is that, am I just making that up, or what's your view about flooding?
Very shortly.
Well, we did have some flooding years ago, but of course, as I've alluded to, there a lot of this is where they're building new premises. And if you take it, Rushy Hill, you'd have known that coming off the Black Mountain in Belfast. As that came down, it was called Rushy Hill for a reason, because the water comes off the mountain and then it hits those rushes, it hits that land, and then it slows it down as it comes down into the next part. Well, what we're doing now is we're building all these little townhouses around the place. There's no gardens in them. We're concreting everything, and the laneways going into that is causing the water to get off the likes of that much quicker, and it is hitting the rivers far faster. And of course the rivers can't deal with it. I don't know if you got the pictures this morning of the river ban and how much it swole out around Portadown and Banbridge, and it is just making an island of these towns that's staying here. And I think really going forward, yes, we need housing, but we need to look at just exactly where we're putting that.
Well, Dougie, it looks very wet where you are, but relatively calm.
Yeah.
Unlike where poor Jeff Moody's been standing by to talk to us. North Devon, I believe, down in the southwest, which is getting the worst of the weather at the moment, Jeff. Hearing up to 104 miles per hour of wind speeds being recorded in the Channel Islands, and even some recorded tornado activity.
Well, that's right, yes, and it certainly is beginning to build here. The storm has definitely arrived. It's quite icy. That rain is very sharp on your cheek, I have to say, and the winds are particularly strong. Just have a little look out to sea here, and you can see what I mean. The boats are really bobbing up and down there, and the waves are getting stronger and stronger. There's somebody walking their dog on the beach. I really don't know why they would be doing that at this time, in these conditions. But this, of course, is nothing like it was in Jersey, where, as you say, winds were over 100 miles an hour. Schools were shut down. Many people have evacuated their homes in Jersey overnight. But now the storm has hit the mainland good and proper. We're hearing that a car was washed out to sea in Teignmouth in South Devon last night, and a major incident has been declared in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. There are 7,000 homes in Cornwall that have no power this morning. People are waking up with no power whatsoever, and conditions are set to get worse. Southern Rail has said do not travel under any conditions, try and work from home today if you can. The RAC is saying make sure that you avoid country roads, because there's a very real danger of trees falling onto roads, and because the trees still have leaves on, and because those leaves are so soaking wet, that adds further danger. The trees are much heavier and they can cause a lot more damage. Plenty of damage being recorded up and down the country. We will be here throughout the day giving you as many updates as we can on what the situation is across the country, but it's not looking good.
Well, I hope you can. Yeah, and I hope you can get some respite in between those hits as well, Jeff. It looks pretty rough where you are and very wet where you are, Doogie, as well. Thank you both very much indeed.
Let's go to the meteorologist at the Met Office, Alex Burkill, who compiles our forecasts. And Alex, we're just looking what's happened, what's yet to come. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, it's already been exceptionally windy, as we were expected. The worst of the winds have hit the Channel Islands. That being said, it's still very windy across parts of the southwest, and those strong winds, exceptionally strong winds, are going to push their way eastwards. As we go through the lunchtime period into the afternoon and through to the evening, that's when we could continue to see gusts in excess of 80 miles per hour, mostly around southern coastal parts towards the southeast, but even a little bit further inland, it is going to be very windy. You've also got to factor in the heavy rain. Some places have already seen an excess of 50 millimetres, which, when that is combined with the exceptionally strong winds and all the heavy rain that we've seen recently, that's why we're seeing so many issues at the moment.
And just explain the sort of damage that a wind gust of 104 miles per hour can cause, or indeed these reported tornadoes that we're hearing about. I mean, there have been warnings of a possible threat to life, but this can do significant damage to what, buildings, to plants, to trees?
Yeah, so those kind of wind strengths are easily enough to blow off roofs of buildings and other structures that are maybe slightly less secure, caravans, etc. They could be destroyed, to be honest, and also with the risk of tornadoes, which there are some reports of, and it was possible in this convective storm that is pushing across the UK. We could be seeing that kind of thing. So that could also be blowing trees down, like your reporter just said. The trees are full of leaves and the ground is so saturated at the moment, it's the perfect ingredients for trees to be blown down. Like he also said, avoiding country roads is very solid advice if you do have to travel today.
Just a small point. Meteorologists like you talk about this weather system, this low-pressure system moving in. Both Eamonn and I have been suffering a headache this morning. Is that a factor that people can experience with low pressure, or is that just a coincidence?
So it's been a dramatic drop in low pressure. We often talk about low pressure centres. However, this one has been exceptionally low, and how quickly the pressure has dropped is also pretty exceptional. I believe we have recorded the lowest pressure on record for England in November. It's got to around 953. The previous November record for England was 959.7, and so it's we've gone much lower than that. And that is exceptionally low. That is why the storm is so exceptionally strong. In terms of how it can make you feel, there are a few things. So yes, higher pressure is obviously often comes with a headache, but lower pressure can do the same. Just drastic changes in pressure can change things. And then the other thing of note, people may notice their tea doesn't taste as nice today because the drop in pressure means that the boiling point of water has dropped as well, and so your water won't get hot enough to make your tea as nice as normal.
I did not know that. That's why I love this job.
Very few things
Learn
you
something
don't know,
every day.
Isabel.
Hardly.
Incredible.
But at least we know now why we have a headache.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank
you continue doing your good work today.
Ooh.
I know why I have a headache.
I thought it tasted a bit gross.
I had there was the match last night, which depressed me. I woke up this morning. I thought 4 hours with Isabel.
No, more than that. We're spending the whole day together, so good luck with that.
Don't tell anybody. Anyway, it's been a chaotic 24 hours at the Rafah crossing in Gaza. And sadly, whatever our troubles here are with storms and whatever, it's nothing to what the Israelis and the Palestinians are going through. Rows of ambulances took the most seriously injured out of Gaza and into the relative safety of Egypt.
And the first British nationals have also been bussed out of the Strip, and we believe around 44 different nationalities, including British people, have been trapped inside Gaza now for the last 3 weeks.
The UN is saying Israeli strikes on a refugee camp which killed a Hamas commander as well as dozens of other people could amount to a war crime. The International Criminal Court says it is investigating possible breaches of international law by Hamas and the Israeli military.
Well, a speech in Minnesota by President Biden says that he welcomes the safe passage of Americans from Gaza.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. We're working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible.
Soon as safety as possible. Let's go to our security editor, Mark White, who's in Israel overlooking Gaza. Mark, tell us the position you're in, because you were saying that you were able to see missiles today and maybe airstrikes as well. What's been going on?
Yeah, we're not far away from northern Gaza at all, overlooking the northern Gaza area now, and yeah, the sounds of explosions are constant. It's explosions, of course, from those missile strikes, fast jets, the constant sound of fast jets over us, helicopters as well from time to time, and there's artillery fire as well that's coming out from not far from the position that we're in as well, targeting those Hamas targets, we're told, in Gaza. And I'm just going to, again, just step to the side and let Ben push in for you to give you a shot right down towards the northern end of Gaza there. And although it's hazy, although there's a lot of smoke, understandably, from the explosions, hopefully you can make out what are devastated buildings that have been very badly damaged by bombardment in recent days. Now, most of the people in that area, we think, have moved further south, or at least into Gaza City. But we've been hearing from an Israeli military spokesman this morning saying that they have, the Israeli military, now broken through Hamas's frontline defences, and they continue to push on. He said, "We are at the gates of Gaza City." The ground forces, though, are coming under very significant attack from well-dug-in Hamas positions, firing anti-tank missiles. They've been setting off, according to the IDF, improvised explosive devices near the troops, the Israeli troops, and also hurling grenades. Small arms fire is constant as well in that area, multiple areas across northern Gaza as these forces push down. What they're trying to do is to push down from the north and right from the coastal strip to the border with Israel inland. They are pushing down, and then to the south of Gaza City, they're also pushing towards the coast. It's clear from what we're seeing that they are trying to encircle Gaza City before the push in to that very heavily populated, densely populated area. Not as densely populated now, but having said that, we understand hundreds of thousands of people have still remained despite the warnings from the Israeli military to move out of that location, either because they don't want to cede ground themselves to the Israelis for fear that they're going to be displaced and never allowed back, or they're being prevented from Hamas, or they're simply just not in a position because of their physical condition to be able to move south. But as I say, although it's not as populated as it would be, there are still hundreds of thousands of people in that area that Israel will eventually push right into on the ground, and it will be hand-to-hand combat as we're witnessing on the northern outskirts of Gaza at the moment. And then to talk about the situation for you further south towards that Rafah crossing, the one chink of sort of good news, I guess, of light in this terrible conflict is the reopening of that strip, that crossing again today, thankfully. It will be limited, though. in terms of the duration that it's open for and the number of people that will be allowed through. 500 again today is the total number of names that are on the list of multiple countries that can go through. Yesterday we had residents, nationals from the UK, from the US, from Indonesia, Australia, Austria, the Czech Republic, so many other different countries. More than 40 different nations have citizens in Gaza at the moment. 500 of them will be allowed out today, along with those seriously injured who will be allowed through again to Egypt for treatment there.
And we think just as few of those could have been 2 British people that got through yesterday. We think from Michelle Donlan, she was saying around 200 Brits are known to be in the strip, so it will take some time to get them out at that rate. But Mark, with that for now, thank you very, very much joining us there from southern Israel.
Second day of the AI intelligence summit at Bletchley Park. So far, we've seen countries around the world reach a first agreement on safety. It's called the Bletchley Declaration. It's an agreement for future safe and responsible development, they hope.
However, we've also seen the tech boss Elon Musk warning us that AI is one of the biggest threats to humanity.
He was stronger than that. He said AI will kill all of us. Bit worrying, but what can we expect from today at the conference? Our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, has got a ticket front row. Tell us more, Tom.
It certainly is the front row, Eamonn. I'm standing right in front of Bletchley Park House here, where the Prime Minister will be rolling up within the next 45 minutes. He'll be meeting, of course, with the Vice President of the United States again. And today is all about greater high-level diplomacy. We had some groundwork laid yesterday, and to be fair, speaking to the organisers, it seems like the agreements reached yesterday were more than they could have possibly imagined 10 weeks ago when this summit was first conceived. Crucially, there is now global agreement on the definition of what is known as frontier AI, the sort of most mysterious, most capable, perhaps most dangerous form of AI. There wasn't one agreed definition of this around the world until yesterday. And now the UK, the EU, the US and China, as well as lots of other countries represented here, have all agreed upon that. And that is a really foundational stepping stone for what is to come. It's likely we're going to see some greater level of diplomatic agreement today, perhaps on countries working together to form what could be international oversight. But of course, something else we learnt yesterday was that this might well have been the first international AI safety summit, but it won't be the last. In 6 months' time, South Korea will be hosting an updated summit, and in 6 months after that, it will be hosted in France. It gives an indication at the rapidly increasing speed and pace and capability of this technology. The leaders of this summit here tell me that it is increasing by 7-fold every year, which gives an indication of the urgency to keep on top of a technology that people here fear could escape human control.
Tom, thank you very much indeed. I wonder, can AI control the weather? Or at least warn us a bit more about it. Let's get another update. We go to Aidan for that.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We're starting the day with Storm Kieran bringing wet and windy weather across many parts of the UK, but the most disruptive and damaging wind gusts moving along the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, and certainly northern France and the Channel Islands seeing some very destructive wind gusts. Now, the worst of the conditions across southwestern areas will tend to ease into the afternoon, but by this stage the winds are strengthening across southeastern parts with the risk in places of 70 or even 80+ mile-per-hour wind gusts, bringing widespread disruption, especially around southern coastal areas, the risk of damaging gusts and dangerous coastal conditions. Elsewhere, we've got spells of rain. That rain, heavy and persistent across eastern Scotland, northeast England, could cause some disruption in places. Likewise for Wales and the southwest, we're likely to see a large amount of rain through the day, clearing to showers later. Western Scotland, Northern Ireland seeing showers through the day, but certainly spared the worst from Storm Kieran. And by the start of tomorrow, well, still a blustery day out there, and frequent showers, but Certainly less wet and windy overall, and there will be some brightness in between the showers, those showers predominantly affecting the north and east of Scotland, northeast England, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. In between, some drier and brighter interludes. Feeling on the cool side, however, 13 to 14 Celsius in the south, 11 to 12 further north.
Just a little update on all of that. Time's coming up to 8:23. I'm told high tide in the Channel Islands at 8:40 this morning and is expected to be an extremely high one, around 10 metres. So all eyes on the Channel Islands. We've already recorded winds of 104 miles per hour there. Keep your experiences coming in, particularly if you are watching us from Guernsey or Jersey, and we'll try and get pictures and footage, and indeed some of you on the line if you want to talk to us just as soon as we can.
Well, I'll tell you what we could do. We could speak to that lady that we spoke to in the first hour of the programme today, because high tide will have happened by then, although I think she lives in the countryside. But we'll do that. Still to come, donkeys, elephants and royals, a busy agenda for the King and Queen. They are in Kenya. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker with all the details next.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
It has been an absolutely jam-packed state visit to Kenya, hasn't it? The front pages this morning, you can see the Queen on lots of them, pictured with a little baby elephant feeding it, no less. It's actually one of my bucket list ambitions to go there in Nairobi, and you can feed little baby elephant orphans. So sweet. So she's been at the elephant sanctuary, the donkey sanctuary, and today another busy day for the royal couple.
OK, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. He will tell you what's been done and what's going to be done today, Cameron.
Yes, so yesterday the King actually listened to accounts of the violence which was committed by British rulers 60-odd years ago during the Mau Mau uprising. Buckingham Palace didn't want to go into any further details last night, but a man called Ambrosi Taylor spoke to the Reuters news agency. Now, he is the great-grandson of a tribal leader who was shot at point-blank range in 1905 and then decapitated by British rulers, which after he led a rebellion. So he spoke to the King personally yesterday, and he said that the meeting was cordial and he appreciated the chance to explain directly to His Majesty the injustices against his ancestors. And he said what the King said in his banquet speech a couple of days ago, although he didn't directly offer a full apology, is a start, and I suppose watch this space, put it that way.
OK. What are they going to be doing today?
Well, today they're going to be flying off to Mombasa, which is on the coast, and they're going to be watching the Royal Marines, who have trained the Kenyan Royal Marines, take part in a mock beach landing, because there's going to be there's a 10-strong specialist training team which has trained the 26 Kenyan Marines, which are going to be sort of special forces for Kenya. There's a lot of threats to the region, particularly Al-Shabaab terror group, and it's kind of again an example of Britain and Kenya working together, strengthening ties, which is, of course, the whole point of a state visit. You're just seeing pictures here of the Queen yesterday visiting the Brook Donkey Sanctuary, where she got into a bit of a muddle because there was a makeshift stall yesterday, and she wanted to buy lots of different products. So there was some butter she wanted to buy, some shawls and some lovely kind of knickknacks, let's say, some souvenirs of her trip. But she ran out of cash.
Oh, no!
Very embarrassing. So Nate had to promise to pay them afterwards.
Oh, gosh. Well, at least she had any, because the late Queen, of course, famously never carried any cash. So,
no, she didn't.
But I imagine she was trying to stock up for her grandchildren.
Why would she be buying a pound of butter for? I mean, why would she be bringing... I mean, that'll be melted by the time she gets home.
Well, it's cashew butter, so it's a special kind of butter. I know, very fancy. 40,000 Kenyan shillings she had in cash, but not enough to buy the jewellery, blankets, baskets and cashew butter that the Queen wanted from the Donkey Sanctuary. Yes, but I'm sure she paid up.
That's inflation for you, isn't it?
All right, Cameron, thanks very much indeed for all that. Well, we're going to stay with the royal theme, and we're going to talk about the King and the Queen's state visit, and going to explore the question, are they both best to serve as UK diplomats?
I think so.
Joining us to debate this is the royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams and the political commentator Femi Olawale. Good morning to both of you. Where should we start? I'll start with you, Femi, shall we? You don't think that the monarchy should be used to boost brand Britain. Why not?
Just to clarify, my name isn't Femi Olawale. That's a different Femi, the Brexit Femi. My name's Femi Nylander. But nonetheless, I think that for many parts of the world, the royals represent a history of kind of colonialism, a history of slavery, a history of oppression. I mean, the royals were the figureheads of colonialism in many regions, and though, of course, many countries have to deal with the royals as the Britain's head of state, I think that in reality, though we believe that they're boosting our image and they are kind of advertising us to the world, a lot of people in the world see the British royal family as a relic of the fact that Britain has not grown up from kind of the times of feudalism, the times of the Middle Ages, and still has to cling on to these hierarchical relics of the past, which don't have a place in the modern world. And that's not to say that some other parts of the world don't also have monarchies. Many countries do, but I mean, even French people, we don't have to go out far flung to countries that were colonized by the UK. I've had plenty of French people say to me, "Why does the UK still have a head of state that is an unelected old guy who's mum was the previous head of state. Why doesn't it have some kind of democratic process? Why isn't it being represented
I
on the
want to
world
bring in
stage
Richard
by
Fitzwilliams
someone
at that stage, who's listened to what you've had to say. And Richard's a royal commentator. He's former editor of the International Who's Who. So how much power has the royal brand got? Femi was saying there that they may look outdated and whatever, and a lot of people don't agree with them. But would more people be impressed by them? I always go by this fact that no matter what we say about royalty, we're talking showbiz. And if people recognise people, they respond in a very positive way.
I think there's absolutely no question that you've got a unique brand with the royal family. And if Femi wants proof of this, if there's a royal wedding, if there's a jubilee, if there's any royal activity, the interest worldwide is enormous. It's worthwhile remembering, by the way, that there are 43 countries that are still monarchies, and the king is head of state of 15. It's very, very significant, too, that if you look at what the British monarchy symbolises, and I'm thinking, for example, of being above party politics, of continuity, of stability, of national unity, you're also looking at the global aspect of it as head of the Commonwealth. I mean, that is very important. I mean, the Commonwealth is an absolutely unique organisation. It's perfectly true that in certain royal visits to the Caribbean, that to Kenya and so forth, the past injustices, this has been, I think, it's a period where you look back and you look forward. But if, for example, I mean, take the monarchy as head of the Commonwealth, you couldn't have a rotating head, you could get some form of dictatorship. Certainly you couldn't have the Secretary-General. They were only a couple of terms, and indeed far from perfect in the case of Baroness Scotland. So that is one of the functions of the British monarchy. And if you look at, for example, at the value of the brand, it's not just changing the, which was audacious, the name of Saxe-Coburg, Gotha to Windsor, which happened a century ago. You've got Buckingham Palace as a centre of that brand, and you've also got royal philanthropy, which is so important. You've got royal warrants, and you've got the symbols of royalty, which means so much. They're debated in various ways, but very significant.
What do you make of that then, Femi Nylander? I mean, I accept that you could see on certain people might find the royal family antiquated, a bit stuffy, but clearly they do help with tourism. The government obviously think they help with our trade partners. I mean, Kenya's a hugely valuable trade partner, and this is obviously seen by the government as a way of boosting trade with the Commonwealth country.
Again, the idea that the royals help significantly with tourism is somewhat overstated. I mean, I believe that the Palace of Versailles has more annual visitors than Buckingham Palace, and the Palace of Versailles is empty because the French chopped off the royals' heads not too long ago. It's not empty, but it certainly doesn't have anyone living in there. And if you could actually go and visit the Buckingham Palace, and you could actually go inside and see things, I think it would be much more of a tourist attraction than if you could just stand outside.
Buckingham Palace and visit at certain
I mean,
times.
if you could go inside beyond kind of just literally the first kind of, if you could properly go inside and walk through as you can with Versailles. At the moment, it's still a residential place. There's large sections of Buckingham Palace which are closed off to the public. And most people who go and visit Buckingham Palace, they stand outside and they look and they say, oh, is the flag up or not? Because we want to know whether the Queen's in. But I don't think that London would stop being a hub of tourism with the UK Republic. But nonetheless,
Final word
again,
to Richard here in studio. Richard, we wouldn't, if we do use them as brand Britain, we wouldn't be the only international country to do so. Doesn't always work out well. I watched a documentary recently about King Juan Carlos, who represented his country around the world, but he represented them basically a bit too much for himself. But you can see how the brand is there. We have had Prince Andrew very enthusiastically doing that in the past. I doubt if he'll be allowed to do it again in the future, but it's not without precedent.
Well, so far as King Juan Carlos is concerned, absolutely, I take your point, except that one must remember that he saved Spain, democracy, from a military coup years ago, which is an important point. I mean, so far as the value of the royal family, if one looks at their charitable work, whether it was Prince Philip's work for Outward Bound and his award scheme, or, for example, if you look at the way the King, when Prince of Wales with the Prince's Trust, it helped over 1 million disadvantaged young people. If you look at William's Earthshot Prize or Catherine's work for early childhood. All of these are extremely significant, and the fact that they're royal gives them a tremendous boost. And I say to Femi, I mean, if he wants an example of palaces that mean something, if you go to Versailles, what does it mean? It's got no furniture. The revolutionaries all burnt it. If you get to Buckingham Palace, you've got changing of the guard, and that attracts hundreds of thousands every year.
Not just at Buckingham Palace, but at Windsor as well.
Absolutely. So these are palaces, absolutely. So you're quite right. These are palaces with a purpose. You've got Holyrood House too, and absolutely.
Femi claims they changed that at Versailles as well, changing of the guards. Is that right?
No. I said, and still less than Versailles, even without
still less than. Right.
Okay. Guys, got to say goodbye to you. Thank you, Femi Nylander and Richard Fitzwilliams.
Thank you both very much.
Good listening to you both. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, stay with us, still to come. Would you believe that our Patrick Christie's has so far managed to raise £184,000 and counting, all for the Royal British Legion with the Poppy Appeal? We'll be crossing live to him very shortly. Don't go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
London Poppy Day today. Patrick Christie's is out and about in Westminster to meet a guest. Now, this is a special guest who's collecting donations for the Royal British Legion, and Patrick will tell us more. And Patrick, just again, my friend, you know, we spoke just a couple of days ago, but your charity collection's going through the roof, my friend. Congratulations, well done.
Yeah, you were hoping for 100,000, and look at it now, nearly at 200.
I know. Hopefully we can get to 200,000. It is justgiving.com/page/GB News Poppy. But there's a man here who's also doing some stellar stuff when it comes to our veterans, and it is Veterans Minister Johnny Mercer. Johnny, good morning. How are you?
Patrick, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, good.
And so, well, tell us why you're here, what you're doing, what's going on.
Oh, look, firstly, I want to say well done for your efforts, right, down in Brighton. I mean, nearly like £180,000 just by getting out there, seeing an issue and getting out there and getting stuck in. It's amazing. Yeah, we're doing well. Look, it's a traditional day where we go and sell poppies, and it's the start of the campaign was last week, but this is a kind of big launch, and we try and raise as much money as we can today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, why is this a cause so close to your heart, then?
Oh, look, I mean, this is my life's work, right? I came into politics to try and change the UK's approach to Veterans Affairs. We've been able to transform it. We've got the Office for Veterans Affairs. We've got the first Cabinet Minister for Veterans Affairs, and we've pulled together all different strands of government to make it work for veterans. There's obviously more to do, right? But it feels fundamentally different now to be a veteran in the UK than it did when I started. So, I'm really proud of the team and everything they've done, but I'm conscious that until everyone feels that, we've still got more to do.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the many things that the Royal British Legion do, and this is what the Poppy Peel helps to raise money for, is to try to help with veterans' homelessness.
Yeah.
That's something that you're very big on sorting out.
Yeah, look, we've gone across all these different areas, right, whether mental health, physical health, the criminal justice system, whatever it may be. Homelessness, there shouldn't be anybody sleeping rough in this country because they're a veteran, right? And what we've done is designed a programme of Fortitude, which is a single clear pathway out of homelessness that you can refer into from your local authority. £8.5 million. We bought 910 supported housing placements. There should be no veterans sleeping rough because of a lack of provision. Now, I understand some will sleep rough for various different reasons, but it should not be because there's a lack of provision for supported housing in this country. We've bought those housing placements. I don't want to see any veterans sleeping rough this Christmas, and I'll be driving around seeing if I can find one to make sure that's happening.
Okay, all right. Look, thank you very, very much. It's been great to have you on the show. It's Johnny Mercer there, the Veterans Minister. I'm going to throw it back to you, Eamonn and Isabel.
Patrick, good man. Thank you very much indeed. We've got Candice Holdsworth and Scarlett Maguire in the studio, and we want to talk about the COVID inquiry yesterday, first of all, and Matt Hancock, Candice. We've got a bit of a video here. He was asked how much paracetamol he was able to take on a recent episode of Celebrity SAS. Here's what he had to say.
What's the maximum amount of paracetamol you can take?
8.
Is that the recommended or the actual?
Maximum. If you haven't got any.
Oh, I've got 4.
Oh, that's well enough. That's well enough. More.
Yeah, I know, but I need to keep stacking these all afternoon now.
Are you worried about them saying that you're medically withdrawn?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm worried about the doctor having a good feel, finding out I've got a cracked rib, and that's been that.
Not sure what enlightening that was.
But so I don't know. Maybe it was him as health secretary, and he doesn't know how many tablets to take. Was that what it was? Did you get any sense of that?
Yes, I think so. I think people have been criticising the clip because he says that he doesn't know the recommended amount of paracetamol, but he was health secretary. But the thing is, this is something people have always said about cabinet ministers. They're not necessarily experts in their portfolio.
Do you know a question I hate? So, Minister, how much is a bottle of milk?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Who cares?
And I would probably
I think it would help if they knew the Chancellor, for example. I think if you're Health Secretary, you ought to know what the recommended...
You can ask me between now and the day I die, which is probably quite soon, but I don't know how much
but you're not the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Well, there you go. I think any moron should be able to tell you what the recommended amount of paracetamol is. Goodness sake.
And what is it? Because you've taken... Well, you've taken 2 this morning.
About 500 milligrams, I reckon, is probably a maximum you can have, and no more than 4 in a day or something like that.
I think you can take 4 lots of 2 in a day.
4 lots of 2?
Yeah.
That's it.
You take 2 sort of every 4 hours. Yeah, but I think, can you do... There's somehow you can, if you get... I get muddled up between paracetamol and the others, but you can do it so you can take paracetamol and then ibuprofen.
That brings the temperature down, and you can do that at a 2-hourly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know that because my son has a temperature at the moment. Scarlett, let's talk about the Red Arrows, shall we? This is a story that was out and about yesterday and really shows an ugly underbelly to one of the nation's favourite RAF.
I know. This is
flying
so terrible. Here you have these 9 men who go in formation and they've been around for years and years and years, obviously changing. And then you find out that they're just sort of ghastly alpha males who as the report says, treat women as their property, are rude about them, rape them. It's really terrible. 2 have already been sacked. But actually, that sort of culture, it just has to change. And it's not good enough by saying, well, we're the top dogs, we can do everything, and therefore, we're untouchable. And that's clearly what they thought. And finally, some women complained about how bad it was, and they have finally done a report into it.
Interesting, we talk about AI. They are the closest you will get to AI. You need a computer flying those planes, and I've met a number of Red Arrows in my time, and they're not the most scintillating conversationalists,
Oh, dear.
but they are obviously at what they do. They are absolutely superb, and they act like machines and computers like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of women find that attractive.
Oh, they do. How many women love the Top Gun films?
Top Gun, yeah.
But not just that they like the men in it, but they'd also like to do that. So, it's important that the culture is welcoming to women who want
So
to...
are there no women?
There was a woman, and she left after 3 years because she found it so horrendous working with the men. And of course, women can do it as well as men. As you say, it's a certain sort of mindset. It's not a gender thing, and also you don't have to be strong, but you have to be really, really good. But that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want in the rest of your life.
I couldn't do it. It's like Strictly. I couldn't do Strictly because I haven't got that brain that knows what 1, 2, 3 and 1, and I don't know what that means. And
Can you pat your head and stroke your belly at the same time? Oh, OK.
No, pat head. Pat and...
Stroke. No, you can't. Yeah, you couldn't fly.
My grandfather was in the RAF.
Oh.
He was eerily calm. Even like they said, he's someone who just doesn't get
Is that not doing it?
No, because you've got to pat one and stroke the other.
Yeah. Why would you need that skill?
It's just easy.
Yeah. See,
that's
Isabel
very
could be
good.
a Red Arrow.
So what does that tell me about you?
I'm coordinated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not.
Anyway.
I can't. I slap my head and, yeah.
Can you, Scarlett? Of course you...
No, I think I'm Eamonn.
Oh, there we go.
I'm hopeless.
I'm the only one.
Here's a story in the Mail, and it's... who wrote this column? Who's this from?
It's
Does anybody know?
Jonas Sibati or something, and it's an incredible story. Is that Miriam Cates, who's a Tory MP, quite right wing, said at some conference that the problem is that all these children were going to nursery and going to school wearing nappies, and the problem was it was the woke culture. I don't quite understand what's so woke about it. So this woman, Shona, writes in the Mail that she sent her child to school. A 4-year-old, she sent her to school with night nappies because she found it was just too difficult to potty train her. And you think, so you expect teachers to do it?
They do.
Well, no, because night nappies means she wears nappies at night. She's presumably using the loo during the day, so the teachers will be involved, but a lot of children still wet themselves.
No, she's sending the child to school wearing a nappy designed for bed.
Oh.
Yes. Oh.
I thought it meant at the age.
So many
wearing
teachers,
night nappies
so
all
many
day.
teachers complain that their day and their skills are taken up by having to change nappies and toilet train children.
Can you imagine being a nursery teacher? I remember, my children's nursery teachers who were great, and having to change nappies. That was something I was really pleased to finish.
And embarrassing for the child as well. At that age, other kids are way more aware of things. Who's in nappies, who's not. It's not nice for them.
Well, it's easy. It's who smells and who's not.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But also, we're living in a cost of living crisis, and 11 million nappies go to landfill in this country every single day. Take a week off work. I do understand that working mums don't have the time that they used to have when people stayed at home. It took a week for me to potty train my kids. You take the nappies off, you let them wee around the house for a bit, and they get it pretty darned quickly. Yeah. But, you know, it saves the planet, it saves your wallet, and gives your kids some what's the word I'm looking for? Dignity.
Self-respect, whatever. So it's pretty scandalous.
I don't really understand it.
Your child goes to school, not trained, not toilet trained, and you think it's the teacher's responsibility to do that.
I mean, we're talking about a Daily Mail journalist. We're not talking about somebody with no way. And she did say it was her fourth child, and she said how difficult it was, and then talked about her useless au pair. You just think, you know, actually sort it out.
Well, it is hard I think it is hard on families, the modern world that we live in. There's not as much time to look after your own children as there might have been once upon a time. I think that's sad that other people have to do a lot of it.
I think if you can't potty train your child, you're failing in parental responsibility. So we're not having any of that excuse, right?
Yes, so I think by the time a child leaves home, I think they have to have been potty. They need to.
By the time they leave home.
No. But I always say that there are three things I'd never thought about potty training, which I just took for granted. There are three things all parents have to do. They have to teach child to ride a bicycle, learn to swim, and learn to drive a car, and then they can go out in the world.
I can do 2 of those 3 things.
Fewer people are learning to drive now. It's actually amazing.
Who's learning to drive?
People are actually waiting till later and later now to learn to drive.
Well,
it used to be seen as something that you did when you were 18.
You should be able to do that by 4. You can do that in a computer game. Thank you very much indeed, Candice and Scarlett, and really nice to hear from you today. Thank you very much.
And now we're going to hear from Aidan McGivern with the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We're starting the day with Storm Kieran bringing wet and windy weather across many parts of the UK, but the most disruptive and damaging wind gusts moving along the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, and certainly northern France and the Channel Islands seeing some very destructive wind gusts. Now, the worst of the conditions across southwestern areas will tend to ease into the afternoon, but by this stage the winds are strengthening across southeastern parts with the risk in places of 70 or even 80+ mile-per-hour wind gusts, bringing widespread disruption, especially around southern coastal areas, the risk of damaging gusts and dangerous coastal conditions. Elsewhere, we've got spells of rain. That rain, heavy and persistent across eastern Scotland, northeast England, could cause some disruption in places. Likewise for Wales and the southwest, we're likely to see a large amount of rain through the day, clearing to showers later. Western Scotland, Northern Ireland seeing showers through the day, but certainly spared the worst from Storm Kieran. And by the start of tomorrow, well, still a blustery day out there, and frequent showers, but certainly less wet and windy overall, and there will be some brightness in between the showers, those showers predominantly affecting the north and east of Scotland, northeast England, as well as parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. In between, some drier and brighter interludes, feeling on the cool side, however, 13 to 14 Celsius in the south, 11 to 12 further north.
Still to come, as you've just seen, wild weather battering the country. We'll be crossing to our reporters on the ground next.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Good morning. It's coming up to 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 2nd of November. This is Breakfast with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
So many stories today, and these are some that we've been covering this morning. Danger to life warnings. Storm Kieran, has it affected you? It's battering parts of Britain and the Channel Islands quite badly. We'll be crossing there live very, very shortly.
Gusts of 93 miles per hour have been recorded in Jersey, closing schools and grounding flights.
Commuters in parts of England have been advised to work from home, and there could be much more to come as high winds and heavy rain head northwards. Aidan McGivern with the latest.
Storm Kieran is currently bearing down across southern parts of the UK. I'll have the full details on this storm in the forecast coming up.
Thank you. Some British nationals stranded in Gaza have crossed the Rafah border into Egypt.
But the war is raging on. The UN now says the bombing of an established refugee camp could be a war crime. Our security editor, Mark White, is in South Israel.
In southern Israel, overlooking northern Gaza, the sound of explosions is constant as a senior Israeli commander says that they have now broken through Hamas's frontline defences.
The AI summit, all the talk, all the rage. It continues today, and there you see Rishi Sunak meeting Kamala Harris. That was yesterday. They'll meet again today with other tech leaders to discuss the risks and benefits of artificial intelligence. Tom Harwood has been following this one for us.
What do you get if you mix the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Vice President of the United States, Elon Musk, Nick Clegg, the head of OpenAI, and various people from Meta and Google and all the rest of it? Well, you throw them at Bletchley Park and hope that global AI regulation is a result. That's the diplomatic prize that some here at Bletchley Park will be trying to reach in the next few hours.
Thanks very much, Tom. And remember, we want to hear from you this morning, particularly if you're in the Channel Islands. Really strong winds and indeed tornadoes having been recorded this morning as part of Storm Kieran. Keep your experiences coming into us here at GB News.
It's interesting to hear former Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg. He now works, is it Meta he works for? So he's warning against rules limiting AI. It's funny how the gamekeeper has turned poacher. The ex-deputy PM said that the AI summit risks putting the cart before the horse in regulating much too early. Interesting, that one. We've also been talking today about the lack of housing in the country. Janice says the trouble with housing is we have too many. Well, not true, Janice, but anyway, knock down and repurpose old ones. Yes, fair point. But we cannot cover our land with any more concrete, otherwise floods will become even more regular.
True.
And I think there's a story brewing near Pinewood Studios, whereby this is Greenbelt area in London, and they're going to make a service station for the M25 or something there. And all this greenland, which was protected, is going to be built over, and the locals
Services,
are
not
up in
for
arms.
houses.
Yeah, not even for houses, for services. But that's the thing. Big business always wins. Business
money talks.
always wins. Money talks. Let us know your views.
So it is our top story this morning. Jersey Airport seen the strongest gusts so far, 93 miles per hour overnight, as Storm Kieran has been battering the coasts of the UK and the Channel Islands.
That will be really frightening, because any airplanes going into Jersey will, by definition, be lighter ones. Hampshire, major incident declared there. Isle of Wight, warnings that the storm could pose a risk to life, we're being told.
The Met Office has issued an amber warning for wind and multiple yellow warnings throughout the day. Schools and airports across the Channel Islands will shut down as they brace for some of the worst weather conditions in 36 years. But the wild weather certainly isn't isolated to the South. Northern Ireland's already faced heavy flooding, some rivers there bursting their banks as the storm was approaching. RAC warning drivers in the south and the west of England to avoid coastal and rural roads. The National Highways has issued severe weather alerts for wind. And joining us now is Jess Morga, our viewer, who got in touch this morning about the chaos at her house in Guernsey. Good morning to you, Jess. We've been looking and listening to all the news coming out of the Channel Islands, lots of homes being evacuated on the neighbouring Jersey to where you are, and gusts of 93 miles per hour at the airport, according to the Met Office this morning. And you had quite a lively night. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed very quiet until about 2:30 this morning, and then my daughter came in. She's got a westerly facing window, and Isabella was certainly nervous, never heard anything like it. I'm sitting in a lean-to here, and it is really, really noisy. And, you know, looking on our socials locally, you know, people are losing roofs, sheds, tiles. We've got now reported over 28 trees down on major roads. But that doesn't account for smaller roads, of which we have many. So I think in Guernsey and the Channel Islands, we have multiple issues because all our small roads are very laden with hedges and greenery and trees. And then our main roads around the coast obviously have the tide. And we've just had high tide now. Luckily, it's not the highest tides that we had last week, because that would have been an issue. But I know, speaking to friends of mine along the west coast especially, they're really getting a battering, and stones and pebbles start, you know, moving over the road. So it's the clean-up job. If we come out of this unscathed, it's going to be a long one.
And Jess, have you ever been through anything like this before in living memory?
I vaguely remember the storm of '87 and walking to school, clambering over trees, finding it, you know, much fun. But certainly, you know, walking outside today, because I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if I talked to you outside? But it's, you know, you can hardly stand, you can hardly hear things.
No.
We've got peltering rain coming down now. Every now and then, something from a next door neighbour
Flies over the hedge. So Jess, tell me, do you work? And if so, what do you work at?
I actually work in a factory now in Guernsey, and I know the directors there.
Well, can I say something to you? If you ever want a job as a reporter, you're a very good one. You're a very good one. Give us a shout, OK?
Thank you, Eamonn. Lovely watching GB News. Keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, Jess. You can come again. She wants a job here.
She's a viewer.
We'll have you.
We'll have her, viewer and listener. Thank you, Jess Mauger there from Guernsey.
Yeah, let's stay in the southwest of the British Isles now. Head to Devon. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody is there for us. You were looking a bit windswept earlier. How is it where you are now, Jeff?
Yeah, well, Jess can come and report from the southwest, because I think I've had enough for one day. Yes, the rain is beating down. The wind has sort of died back a little bit, but it has been very ferocious. If you just have a quick look out to sea, you can see how the boats are sort of bobbing around a bit. As I say, it's a little bit better than it was sort of 5-10 minutes ago, but all sorts of flood warnings now in place for the southwest. We're hearing that 7,000 homes are without power in Cornwall. Serious problems on the south coast of Devon. A car was washed out to sea in the middle of the night. Luckily, nobody was in it. And we have got sort of warnings right across the south. A major incident has been declared in Southampton, in Hampshire, and across on the Isle of Wight too. Well, the RAC is saying try not to travel if you can possibly help it. Certainly avoid coastal roads. Certainly try and avoid rural roads too, where the problem is that trees can come down. And because of this time of the year, trees still have their leaves, and those leaves are wet and sodden after days and days of rain. That means that the trees are particularly vulnerable, particularly heavy, and could well fall. So many schools across the southwest have taken the decision not to open today. Some of them have decided they were going to wait a little bit to see what the weather was like this morning, but we can see what the weather's like. There's a very strong chance that if you're going to school in the southwest, you won't be going in today. As you said earlier on, that storm is beginning to move up the country as the day progresses, but we'll be here on Instow Beach throughout the day, bringing you the very latest from Storm Kieran.
OK, Jeff, thank you.
Stay safe, my friend. Give yourself a hot drink as well. Thank you very much.
It has been a chaotic 24 hours at the Rafah crossing. Rows of ambulances managed to take the most seriously injured, or at least some of them, out of Gaza and into the safety of Egypt.
The first British nationals have been bussed out. About 44 different nationalities, including Britons, have been trapped inside Gaza since the 7th of October atrocities.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has said that the Israeli strikes on a refugee camp in Gaza, which killed a Hamas commander as well as dozens of others, could have been a war crime. The International Criminal Court says it's investigating possible breaches of international law, not only by Hamas, but also by the Israeli military.
In a speech in Minnesota, President Biden says he welcomes safe passage of Americans from the Strip.
Today, thanks to concerted American leadership, we're in a situation where safe passage for wounded Palestinians and foreign nationals to exit Gaza has started. The American citizens are able to exit today as part of the first group of probably over 1,000. We'll see more of this process going on in the coming days. We're working nonstop to get Americans out of Gaza as soon and as safely as possible.
Well, earlier on the programme this morning, we spoke to the Science Secretary, Michelle Donnell, and this is what she had to say.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that my heart goes out to everybody that's impacted, the Israeli people and also the Palestinians who themselves have been held hostage to Hamas, and it is awful what they're going through. And my heart goes out to the families up and down the UK that are waiting on loved ones to return. You're quite right. The Foreign Office have said that some people have managed to get over that border, and we are anticipating that there will be more coming. We haven't spoken out with an exact number as of yet, but I know that the Border Force stand ready and that our teams on the ground have been in touch with many individuals, and there is a list of people that are British nationals. 200, I believe, is the figure that I have. And our focus is on getting them out as quickly as we possibly can.
Well, let's get some reaction to all of that from our security editor, Mark White, who's on the ground for us in Israel. Good morning again to you, Mark. Interesting hearing Michelle Donnell saying 200, they think, remain within the Strip. Do we know yet how many managed to get out through the Rafah crossing yesterday? Some of the papers suggesting just as few as 2 British nationals, which would be a disappointing number, but it means there's a big mountain to climb yet to get everybody out to safety.
Well, that would chime with what we were hearing yesterday, which was that in the list of 500 people who were to be allowed out yesterday, there were 2 British nationals. Understand that they were British NGOs that were working in Gaza. So, yes, the bulk of those 200 British nationals who have made contact with the UK Foreign Office are still in there at the moment. But the hope is, over the coming days, that very slowly but surely they'll be allowed out. It's got to be, as far as Egypt and Israel is concerned, a controlled and systematic release of people a few at a time. Israel will not stand for thousands of people pouring over the border into the Sinai Peninsula. Israel likewise wants strict controls over those leaving. They want to make sure they are indeed foreign nationals or dual nationals, that they are not Hamas fighters trying to get over and into Egypt and away from the fighting. And also all the time as well, of course, is the issue with the aid trucks. Another 50 or so trucks went in yesterday. The US are calling for 100 aid trucks at least to get in a day, but they have to go through rigorous Israeli checks as well to make sure there's no fuel there, and that they can be confident that these are not going to be, these aid supplies are not going to be commandeered by Hamas.
OK, Mark, thanks very much indeed.
So here we are, busy week, and it's the second day of the Artificial Intelligence Summit at Bletchley Park.
And so far, we've seen leading nations reach a world-first agreement on AI safety. It's called the Bletchley Declaration, and it's a historic agreement for future safe and responsible development.
We've also seen Elon Musk, of course, warn that AI is one of the biggest threats to humanity. He's saying it will kill all of us eventually, so that's a little bit worrying. What can we expect from today? Let's go to Tom Harwood, and he will tell you. Tom, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and you touched there on the variety of views at this conference. You've got people like Elon Musk who say that there is a real risk that developing super intelligent AI could escape human control, and AI sort of thinking for itself might have very different aims and values from that of humanity, and that might lead to some big problems. And then you've got people like Nick Clegg, who's also here. He now works for Mark Zuckerberg at Meta, the owners of Facebook. They are developing their own AI in an open source way. They don't think it's very risky to make this ever more powerful and more independent form of artificial intelligence. And then you've got a lot of people in the middle, people like Sam Altman. Now, he runs OpenAI. They make the very famous product ChatGPT and are behind something called GPT-4, which is one of the most advanced forms of large language model as they're known out there in the world. Now, he says there's a chance that this stuff, if not properly regulated, could mean lights out for humanity. But, of course, there is also the huge benefit that AI could bring to humanity if it's developed in the right way, if it's developed in the safe way. And we heard the King talk a little bit about this yesterday. He said AI could do things like cure cancer or solve climate change and solve some of these huge issues that humanity face, cure dementia, all the rest of it. Those are the prizes that we could have with AI that's developed responsibly. But the task of this summit is to set those guardrails so that AI remains within human control and doesn't run away, doesn't escape human control. And one of the most profound measures that we came to yesterday here in Bletchley Park was actually defining what frontier AI is. Because as the organisers of this conference have been saying right the way through, unless you can get global agreement on defining what you need to regulate, then you can't even have those initial building blocks. So it was remarkable seeing the United Kingdom, the United States, the EU and China all coming together, as well as countries around the world signing up to that declaration yesterday. The task today is to see how those foundation stones can be brought forward, perhaps in some sort of ongoing international agreement.
Okay, Tom, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much. We're going on a royal walkabout next. Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, on a busy day of events for the King and Queen in Kenya next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
We've been doing lots of coverage of it, the royal visit to Kenya. The King and Queen have got another busy day today, and we are joined now by our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, to walk us through it all. And Cameron, yesterday was really interesting because they've sort of been doing a few of their pet projects whilst they're there. There was a donkey sanctuary, there was a lovely elephant sanctuary, little baby orphans. But just tell us about an awkward moment for the Queen when she ran out of cash.
Yes, so this was at the Brook Donkey Sanctuary. The Queen is president of that particular charity, and there'd been a makeshift stall set up so the Queen could buy lots of different souvenirs. So she wanted to buy some cashew butter, some jewellery, a basket and things like that. She had 40,000 Kenyan shillings on her.
Sounds a lot.
Which sounds a lot, doesn't it? Apparently not. A bit awkward. She got to the end to pay and she'd run out of cash.
Oh, no.
So an aide had to hastily take down the details of the different store owners to pay them later. I suspect that she would pay them back later, though.
I'm
I
sure.
don't think she's completely run out of money, but yes, it's awkward for her.
Yeah. Good headlines, though. Front of the Telegraph, the African Queen runs out of cash.
Yeah, but you just have to look at all the photographs on the front pages. The photo of the day, for me, the Queen feeding baby elephant Mazinga, who's 1.5 years old. She's the youngest baby elephant, orphaned elephant, at the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust Elephant Orphanage in Nairobi National Park. They look after 27 different orphans who've lost their mothers through poaching, human conflict with wildlife, as well as natural causes as well, or just they've just got lost along the way. But it was really, really sweet moments, and the King joined her afterwards at the same sanctuary, and a little baby rhino trotted along as well, which was even cuter than the elephants, although that was very hard. But yes. It was
well, I was speaking to a woman who was connected to an animal charity yesterday. It was a donkey charity and horse charity as well. And everybody is scampering to get the royal seal of approval, and what she was seen doing out there extends to a lot of these other charities as well.
Yeah, and the royals have this power of soft diplomacy, which is one of the reasons why the Foreign Office has sent the royals out there. They really want to shore up ties and trading ties between Kenya and the United Kingdom, and you just see the different engagements they've been doing with different types of charity work. So, for example, the King was at a tech summit with lots of young Kenyans who are starting out in their career. Youth unemployment's a huge problem in Kenya at the moment, but the King, by shining a spotlight on that, could potentially attract some investors. So it's all those sorts of things.
So it's a 4-day state visit. Is today the last day, or they fly back tomorrow? Because obviously it's a big weekend in the UK with Remembrance Sunday coming up, and I just wondered, are they involved in that, or will that be Prince William at the Cenotaph?
Well, we expect the King to be at the Cenotaph as usual. It's 4-day state visit, 2 days in Nairobi. This morning they're flying to Mombasa, which is on the coast.
Lovely.
They're going to be spending 2 days there. They're going to be visiting some Kenyan Marines who've been trained by the British Royal Marines. So some Kenyan soldiers are going to be the so-called special forces who are going to fight terror groups such as Al-Shabaab, it's expected. But the King and Queen are going to be watching a mock beach landing on the beaches of Mombasa later on today. So we'll get lots of pictures of that, hopefully keep you right up to date here on GB News.
It's a lovely coastline in Kenya.
It's lovely.
I have a lovely time
jealous.
in Mombasa. Beautiful stretches of white sand.
Yeah.
This will do the country a lot of good, I would have thought, you know, in terms of profile.
Absolutely. I mean, the tourism, as we said, the front pages, safari, a huge attraction to international money coming in. And also it's about teaching Kenyans that conservation really can be a lot more profitable than poaching the animals, which is something that King Charles has really championed for more than half a century now. And his son, Prince William, as well, with setting up United for Wildlife, again, really trying to keep conservation in the minds of ordinary people as well.
Absolutely, laudable.
There is, you know, however lovely that photograph is of Mazinga, the baby elephant, it's the story behind why she is an orphan. That's the whole thing in the first place.
Cameron, thanks very much, as always. We say goodbye to everybody at home as well. Thanks very much for your company this week. We've really enjoyed it. We'll see you back next week, 6 a.m. Monday morning.
And stay safe from the storm. And if you have any good pictures, send them here to GB News. Up next, it's Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. You have yourselves a nice day.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We're starting the day with Storm Kieran bringing wet and windy weather across many parts of the UK, but the most disruptive and damaging wind gusts moving along the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, and certainly northern France and the Channel Islands seeing some very destructive wind gusts. Now, the worst of the conditions across southwestern areas will tend to ease into the afternoon, but by this stage the winds are strengthening across southeastern parts with the risk in places of 70 or even 80+ mile-per-hour wind gusts, bringing widespread disruption, especially around southern coastal areas, the risk of damaging gusts and dangerous coastal conditions. Elsewhere, we've got spells of rain. That rain, heavy and persistent across eastern Scotland, northeast England, could cause some disruption in places. Likewise for Wales and the southwest, we're likely to see a large amount of rain through the day. Clearing to showers later. Western Scotland, Northern Ireland seeing showers through the day, but certainly spared the worst from Storm Kieran. And